Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. It's week 2 of LPL 2025 Split 1, and we're getting ready to dive into today's best of 5 between Ultra Prime and JDG. As always, hola, what's up, y'all? I'm Rafa. I'm joined by Jamada, who I want to give a quick shout out to. It's come to my attention, you've officially moved into the 14th rank of all-time scoring list for the LA Clippers. Congrats, my friend. That's a huge accomplishment. Now you understand. Sure, a share of stomps, but we've also had share of surprises, especially in week 1. I think if anyone missed out on last night's series between Ninjas in Pajamas and IG, that was probably the biggest surprise we had all of the first 8 days of the splits so far. Shout outs to Doimby and crew for really stepping up against the Shy and the rookie, big wonder team. Understandable. We do want to go steamrolling ahead though into giving everyone a reminder of the teams that are in the LPL split for 2025. 4 groups, single round robin for every single group, all best of 5s. And today's match with Ultra Prime and JDG, it is towards Group B. Now, Weibo Gaming has played 2 best of 5s already. OMG and Ultra Prime have respectively played 1 best of 5, and JDG have not played a single best of 5 yet. Today will be their first match in the 2025 LPL first split. So this is going to be our first look at this team since we last saw them in Demacia Cup, and if we're going to be quite frank, Jamada, it was kind of disappointing based on the individuals you have on this roster for JDG.
Yeah, and I'm hoping I'm back. I'm also hoping that it's this mic that is being picked up by the feed and not the webcam mic, God forbid. But I agree. I totally agree with you, right? By the standards of the roster that JDG have fielded, that Demacia Cup run was shambolic, right? Now, granted, only Demacia Cup, right? Some teams take it more seriously than others. That said, this caliber of roster should not have been playing like how they were. So hopefully we see something a little bit more awe-inspiring, or just inspiring in general out of JDG into an Ultra Prime who themselves have definitely looked a little bit more troublesome. Something
at least better than what we got in Demacia Cup in December. But if there's any, potential inspiration for something better from JDG, we look at Ultra Prime. Ultra Prime, as in their Demacia Cup performance, not necessarily the greatest either, but then, as we'll take a look at some later tape later in our pre-show, Ultra Prime stepped up against Weibo Gaming. But here on screen, we want to give you a preview of other best of 5s that will be happening throughout the second week of our first split of the LPL. Today, obviously, Ultra Prime and JDG. A couple standouts that I'm looking at, Jamada. Anyone's Legend versus Top Esports. I think that's probably one of the big deciders of that particular group. And then if you even look further, I think RNG and IG becomes even more interesting now that IG have already dropped their first series against Ninjas in Pajamas.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, right? And I think the fact that RNG are going into that series 1-0, having previously bested FPX, all the more pressure on IG to make sure they don't trip up again. And similar-ish in that Wednesday match too. WE versus LGD, right? Both those teams 0-1. That's effectively kind of that's an all or nothing series. You go 0-2, you're not going through. So, or the likelihood of you going through is incredibly low. So, definitely a must-win for both those two teams. While some of this might not necessarily be the hype or the level of that ALT Top Esports series that you mentioned. Again, for Group A, instrumental for both those two teams.
Yep. So that is a preview of what's to come for later in the week. As always, it will be same time. Hang on, I gotta double check my clock here. 2 a.m. Pacific.
2 a.m. Pacific. Yeah.
Well, what time is it over where you're at, Jamada?
It's encroaching 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay.
It's doable for us here in England, and of course in Europe, definitely far more so an hour ahead.
There you go. So we early morning here in the West or North America, and then normal early morning over in the Europe side of things every day this week. But let's dive right into Ultra Prime and JDG, because there's a lot to really go through, and when we're talking about what to expect with both of these rosters. As on screen you can see the individuals here. A little quick history about some of these players. Both Junhao and Rosie Love are promotions from the LDL, Junhao coming from BLG Junior respectively, Rosie Love from the respective Ultra Prime Academy system. Saber also being promoted within mostly the internal Academy system of Ultra Prime, whereas Waco and Wenjiang coming from the LCP, or previously known as I used to know it as LMS back in the day, but it's been the PCS. I think there's like one other name region for it, but on paper this roster has some experience between their players, and a lot of rookies making their official debut this year as starters in the LPL. And while the Demacia Cup left a lot on the table in their series against Weibo Gaming, as we're going to see in some of these highlights, there's a lot of moments of brilliance, especially from the bot lane Waco and Rosie Love, and from Junhao in the jungle.
Yeah, and I don't want to be negative Nancy immediately. It's just the inner hater of Weibo inside me still wants to say, the caveat is this, that it is Weibo, right? they love to fumble against teams that realistically they shouldn't. That said, it's still kind of difficult to take away from the showing that we got out of Ultra Prime regardless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think seeing moments of brightness like that out of a roster that has the limited experience in the areas that it does, right? I think is against a lineup with as much experience as what Weibo is obviously building, a spectacular thing to see so early on, and hopefully we continue to see that level of confidence throughout their campaign here in the first split in the LPL. And hey, you never know, maybe we get a bit of an upset here today again if JDG's performance isn't up to snuff. Every game is a game, right? Until it's basically done, as was the rule yesterday in Rogue vs Giant X if you watched the LEC. So yeah, again, Ultra Prime, if they're aggressive, if they draft with engaged tools, expect them to just constantly send it.
Yeah, I think big players to really look out for so far that we've gotten in this first few matches they've displayed in our first split of the LPL has to be looking at Junhao. This guy being promoted after his time on BLG Junior. He really is kind of a carry threat jungler that when he's given resources and he's given priority from his teammates and they play for him and he gets ahead, you get to see performances like this on this Viego where they kind of steamrolled Weibo Gaming. And there was a moment in game one, despite losing against Weibo, that Junhao was in a position on Wukong to actually kind of bring it home for them. And there would have been a world where it would have been a 2-0 opener against Weibo, and Weibo would have been on the back foot. And who knows, maybe they crumble under the pressure and it's a 3-0. We'll never know that timeline now. But on the flip side, JDG, there's so much that we can talk about this roster, so much, credibility with a lot of these individuals. You have, a world champion in Scout on this roster. You have Shun and Pays, who are international finalists that have been able to really go the distance in some bigger name rosters. But this team is essentially a bunch of individuals who were dropped by their former teams, and now they have to come together and show all the doubters that they still got it.
Yeah, exactly right. It is a bunch of players who have seen incredible heights in terms of, previous appearances, whether it be here domestically or of course internationally if you're Scout, Shun, or Pays. This is kind of your expected in terms of power, I suppose, JDG kind of roster in terms of the name power of these players, but it's about getting them to actually work together and be even greater than the sum of their parts. And the parts equal a lot. So
yeah,
it's not a roster to turn your nose up at, right? These guys are players that we all know individually have had incredible highlight reel moments. It's about kind of rekindling those past embers, I suppose, and actually putting it together in a meaningful way. JDG did not have a stellar 2024. This is a huge rebuild, and it's a moment that's kind of pivotal for JDG as an organization, right? They've been a player in the top end of the LPL for such a long time. They want to stay there, and this is, again, kind of a keystone moment as far as this organization is concerned, given where they were just 2 years ago.
yeah. And for them, because they have so much to prove, they would love to be consistently in the underdog state in every match that they get to go into, so that they're able to play up and above expectations. However, Jamada, they're playing against Ultra Prime, so they are unfortunately the favorites in this matchup. So if they were to drop the ball here, the stocks are crashing for JDG and a lot of these individuals. And I know a lot of people might think, why are we being so harsh and critical? It's only one best of 5. Well, as we alluded to at the top of the show, this is a single round robin in a group of 4. So if you lose your first series, you're already in a position of not making it out of the group. And then your first split, it's over. It's done.
And you also have to remember contextually, right? Ultra Prime, this is a team in this group. For clarity, just again, because it's not up on the screen right now. Weibo, OMG, Ultra Prime. That's the group. That's Group B. Those are the other 2 teams. JDG, this is their first series. People are not expecting Ultra Prime to get out of the group. They have already lost to Weibo. You lose to Ultra Prime, you still have Weibo to play, who, you know, we don't necessarily know the upper ceilings of right now. Again, it just kind of sets yourself up for, you know, at worst case, if JDG are going to be on a downward trend, they take OMG, they finish the group 1-2. At that point, it's a coin flip on, well, are we just going to get the tiebreaker rules in terms of games won, etc. And then you get into the real nitty-gritty. So you need to be Ultra Prime just to feel good about even existing in this group, because you are the last one to play as well.
Yeah. And one of the individuals I think we have to really kind of take a microscope lens and just be very critical and intent on seeing how they perform is Shun, the jungler for JDG. I mean, this is a player that we know and have had such high praises for in the past, but we can't overlook the fact that, you know, BLG subbed him out for Way in order to push all the way to World Finals just this past year. And even though this player is super capable of being one of the best mechanical junglers in the entire league, one of my favorite players to watch on Nidalee whenever I'm, you know, looking forward to an international tournament, this guy's really got to step it up if he wants to help bring this JDG roster to the promised land and to the expectations that we have for this roster as a whole.
Yeah, it's such a strange back end of his year, isn't it? Right? Summer, it was horrible. It was a genuine shocker to see. But not only to get subbed out, but then to basically be one of the shining reasons you get subbed back in Worlds, and then you make it all the way to finals. It's a crazy trajectory. So it makes it even more crazy that he wasn't the choice jungler. Well, I don't know the context fully of how BLG's offseason went, but Way's on that roster, Shun's not, right? So again, you come here now onto a completely new team, your 2023 rivals, technically, right?
Yeah.
To basically start the big rebuild for JDG. Hopefully he can find a little bit more success. Not that Knight is necessarily a bad mid laner to have as a jungler, but I do wonder how he's going to play with Scout alongside him in the long run. Because as we saw out of Scout, not to divert too far away from Shun, is that he was a big time enabler for LNG. And if that is going to be the style of play that, you know, Scout brings generally to JDG, even though he's a very versatile player, if that's what he decides to do, then I think that only serves to really benefit Shun and then the overall system that I would expect this JDG lineup to kind of play through, where it's very box standard, strong 2v2 jungles, play into Pays, right? And let Arlo do whatever the hell he wants to do on the top side of the map. Yeah, hopefully that's what we see out of Shun, because, yeah, it was a strange end to the 2024 year, and it would definitely be a shame to see him suffer or have a poor 2025 off the back of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up Hayes, because, I mean, that's probably the other big name that has come into the conversation around JDG, because before him, it was Ruler. And when Ruler left Gen G to go to the LPL and play for JDG and almost complete the Golden Road in 2023, who was on JDG, who stepped up from the internal Gen G Academy system and be promoted to that starter spot? It was Pays. But now they've swapped. Ruler has gone back home to Gen G. Pays is now coming to JDG. And so, because of the Demacia Cup performance, we were left wanting so much more from this marksman player. And this is a moment now where, you know, his, I don't know if we want to say unofficial LPL debut didn't go so well. So, you know what, Pays? Take this moment to say, all right, Demacia Cup, it happened, but it didn't happen because it wasn't LPL 2025. So now you get to make your official LPL debut today, January 20th, 2025. No matter what happened in the past, it's all done. Focus on what you can do today. Lock the frick in, buddy. I want to see you pop off.
And you know what? It's important that you say lock in, because I think one big criticism of Pays is that he has not been a big game hunter. And I think that is a pretty easy trend to track. Big games, he's just gone silent, right? And it's weird because we've seen games, whether it be internationally or domestically in the LCK, that have basically mattered moot, and he's dropping kill records. But again, you come into those bigger matchups where it's against, you know, well, his now organization in JDG, if it was internationally, or, you know, counterparts in the LCK who are title contenders. Even if, you know, I mean, and Gen G have obviously had a bit of a good run outside of summer 2024 domestically. Pays was quiet. Pays was very, very quiet a lot of the time. So hopefully here it's a different story, because I think this is probably a roster where I see wanting to probably play to enable bot lane, right? And of course that is what JDG as an organization, obviously iterations are always going to change, right? And it's going to change how you see teams play. But the most sort of prominent version of JDG that a lot of people are going to remember, still fresh in their minds, is 2023 MSI, right? That version, 2023 as a whole, for JDG, pretty much consistently giving everything to Ruler and just making the game work. We're in a completely different version of League of Legends, don't get me wrong, but it's still kind of tried and true. You can get away with just kind of playing borderline one carry comps, right? Maybe one pseudo carry on top of that, and just win as long as your macro is clean enough and you understand resource management and get your carry far enough ahead. So we'll see if JDG have returned from their Demacia Cup outing a little bit more reinvigorated, or again, if we're going to see a struggling into an organization and a team that realistically by expectation shouldn't be going too far this split.
Yeah, I mean, for the sake of JDG fans everywhere, they're hoping not for the latter, and hoping that their favorite team will take a page out of Ultra Prime's book, who we just saw take the stage, as well as JDG, that their Demacia Cup did not continue to trail them going into their series against Weibo Gaming. So, you know, it's been a month since we've seen JDG play. We're going to see if they got some extra scrim time, extra, bonding time or synergy time, whatever teams or individuals got to do to hash, all the kinks out and see if they can get things to click, or if now they've just, had more time to adjust to the patch and the overall new season, playing well around the feats of strength that we have, understanding the power of Otacon and knowing when and how to properly set up around it. Because I think, one of the bigger conversations we've had with teams in the LPL is that compared to things like Baron and Dragon, Otacon is such a difficult monster to kill, and it's such a dangerous one to undertake, you know? Like, we used to think Baron was probably the most dangerous monster. I don't know if this is a controversial take, Jamana, but I think Otacon is probably the most dangerous monster to take on the field right now.
I think just because of how aggressively Otacon shreds your resistances, right? I think you see a lot of picks in the meta right now where, you know, Rumble slips through a lot with Rel, and you've got these big wombo combo compositions. And even things like Yone are still very popular in the mid lane. So you start up an objective like Otacon, and obviously old Baron used to do the exact same thing, but I think now it might still do armor as well. I know it definitely shreds magic resist still, at the very least. But Otacon, very quickly will your resists get shredded. And like you say, because of the nature of the pit of Otacon, it's very open. It's in fact, it's hard to even call it a pit, right? Just because those walls are there, that's just where it spawns. That's just giving you indicators of where the AoE is gonna hit you.
Right.
It is basically like standing in the middle of the river and, you know, trying not to stay too close to each other in case you get engaged on. So yeah, I agree with you. I think setup around this objective has been, you know, trying at times for many teams. And it's definitely a good sign. Yeah, still figuring it out. I think it's a very good sign of teams that have been able to take it very cleanly, just through good macro, like you would see taking a dragon, really, at that kind of stage in the game, as we're getting into the 1v1s. And I'm looking forward to what strategies we do or don't get for today's side select little scuffle.
Check this out, Jamana. We got Saber taking up the 1v1. So a little mid lane action, at least from the side of Ultra Prime, whereas JDG are still sending in their top laner Nala to go up against Ultra Prime's candidate of choice. Now, we've seen some pretty standard 1v1 matchups, a lot of typically marksmen. Sometimes you have a bruiser that can be pretty oppressive, like a Rumble, but that will still go up against the marksman. I did not see it live, but I was told there was a Warwick in a 1v1, and I missed it. I've been begging and asking for the Warwick.
Yeah.
I would love Warwick to see it, but it's probably... What is this?
Huh. That was quick from Saber. Like, it was instant. They both knew what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, Darius is an interesting one, because what it actually does to the dynamic of a 1v1 is I don't think he cares about that. You know, we've been seeing like a lot of exhaust, cleanse, back. This guy's going flash ghost.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
This then raises the question: will Allah, and I love this side-by-side team talk, you know, covering it feels like football, you know, you see players trying to talk to each other, they're covering their hands so they don't get lip read. It does raise the question: will Allah, you know, run Ghost Flash, or is he gonna have the wrong sums? Because if he doesn't have Ghost Flash, I'll just edge it to Saber, just off rip, just by virtue of Darius existing and the amount of stats he gets for kind of just right clicking.
Yeah.
It's a hard 1v1 to play out, even with the range advantage that Corki obviously offers.
Yeah, because as you say, as soon as Darius closes the distance on you, you're doomed. It's over.
You ain't got the damage to match that.
Yeah, you cannot. Oh, Snowball Ghost. This is lit.
Ghost. Okay, Saber. We see you, bro.
Okay.
We see you.
Jamon, I'm getting quick flashbacks to All-Stars.
Oh,
hang on. The Snowball tech is already there, and he's popped the Ghost, and I was like, wait a minute. I don't like this at all. He's got a barrier. He's got Ignite, and he's going to just pop the barrier to try and deflect a lot of that all-in damage. But right there, you see the potential lethality of this Darius in the early levels.
Yeah, and not only that, he's going to have Snowball up again very soon, right? Have we seen... Now, I haven't actually had my eye on the 1v1s since, you know, we moved over to the Howling Abyss bridge. So I can't tell you off the top of my head whether or not we've seen many Snowballs come out yet. But it makes a lot of sense, right? It's kind of it's skill shot flash as far as this 1v1 is concerned on a significantly cheaper CD. So honestly, hats off to Saber. He's got himself a massive HP advantage now as well. And he's technically got sustain if he can hit the Q. So this is I mean, look at this. And he's gonna get him again.
He's gonna pull him in. He's just
dead.
dead. You're right, Jamaada. The burn from the passive is not gonna be enough to take him out. We were so ready for it to be over, but Saber is just one auto attack away, because I imagine between an auto, the passive bleed would be the end of Allah. So he's trying to keep his distance. Remember, no flash on this Corki setup. The only other summoner spell that is available is Ignite, but he would have to chunk out Saber a little bit more to make use of that all in. And he barely Wait, he's going in. You're insane.
Wait, Saber.
What? Oh my God! He thought that he had the smoke to tango with Saber, but he was wrong. Darius wins the 1v1.
He's got one more kill to get. Remember, it's 2 kills, right?
Oh,
That he needs.
damn,
So
I got
Saber's
too
gonna get that
excited.
reset. Still a great call. Don't worry about it. Still a great call. But this is kind of meta defining. This is one of those games where
This is gonna shake it up.
care about side select, and bear in mind, a lot of teams still value blue side heavily over red side. This is a study game. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's been a while since I've been a coach of a team, but I would every single session you're giving homework to your player. This is a homework game. This is a watch what happens every single time you get to see snowball up and just see how aggressively it gets used.
This will be in history books for ages, Jamaada. This is the day that Saber defied everything we have come to expect about the LPL 1v1.
He did just burn Ghost there, though. Unfortunately, he's not going to get value out of it in an actual rundown attempt, just because he barely missed that apprehend. But I'm loving this from Saber. This is nothing but a big smile on my face right now.
Yeah, I'm locked in right now. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. We haven't even started the official best of 5 yet.
Snowball.
This is just for side select.
Got Snowball up again. See how aggressively he positions, trying to get between the minions and Arla. Oh, and he interrupted.
Pulls him out of the Valkyrie. So huge. But Saber's taking way more damage now that Allah has had a chance to buy and get a couple of longswords and that extra Dorn's Blade for himself.
I don't think Saber knows just how much damage he is capable of doing, even through that barrier being up. Weirdly enough. And granted, he's a mid laner, Saber, so not sure how much experience he's gonna have had on the Darius.
I wonder if this pick was like fed by the rest of his teammates. They're like saying, "Dude, you should try Darius." He's like, "I've never played this champion before, dude. Just trust.
Just trust. It's good.
It's good."
Okay. Well, also, I suppose just to track it, so I don't think we're gonna get there just by how these two have played. Basically even CS. All right. So we got that going too. Don't forget, 100 CS, first tower, 2 kills. That's what it is.
Yep. Saber is not necessarily dominating Allah in the CS department, so Allah wants to take the... I don't want to say coward's way out, but... If he wants to, you know, have an honorable to the death match... Oh, wait a minute, Saber didn't actually back?
If he stays here long enough, Allah surely just thinks he's based. But of course there is... Oh, no, he queued the wave. Okay.
Suddenly the minion wave disappeared. I wonder who's there.
Where did those caster minions go? Oh, swing and a miss.
Just trying to fish for a cheeky apprehend. Ideal if he can hook it as Allah is escaping with the Valkyrie, which Saber has been able to do a couple times so far in this 1v1.
Has Ghost back up now, though, Saber, so rundown attempt is always very, very possible. And if he starts to buy a little bit of AD now, this is where things, again, get real spooky. And the Phage. Oh, my goodness. So Tiamat Phage. He's got 153 AD with just those 2 items. Darius, if he gets 5 stacks, gets a bunch of AD from his passive. And of course, he's also got Conqueror. So at this point in the game, he gets full stacks on Arla. Falks away from that snowball. You're looking at an execute on his ultimate of, you know, 500 damage, right? At top value, and that's not even factoring in if he hits level 11, right? Before the ring starts to close in, stuff gets real scary. You can get half shot basically.
I didn't even think about that. I forgot that we have like a Fortnite-esque ring that just closes around. It forces them to fight to the death.
every game is a battle royale, baby. That's how that works.
Apprehend goes wide, Ala side steps in, gets a little bit of extra chip damage. That's important for him. I'm not sure when the battle royale circle starts to enclose, but
my assumption would be 10 minutes. I would assume that's the limit. Again, this is my first 1v1 on the bridge. I've not tuned in to track the 1v1 meta, admittedly. Run down.
Ooh, I like what Ala did there. He Valkyried in so that he would avoid the outer damage of that Decimate. And that's the Ghost gone from Saber. He's gotten a lot of damage, to be fair, with that Trinity Force already completed.
Yeah, that's really rough. He had so much upfront burst there. Once you miss that outer ring of the Q, it starts to get real risky, and Saber can't base anymore. Look at the ring, look at the minimap. So that's closing in. That is advantage Ala. And that's going to stick. So Saber somehow has to dodge out on a bunch of damage from Corki at point blank range and then still kill him.
He pulls him in, Apprehend, gets a decent amount of damage with that guillotine, but Ala can now just take him out. Oh my... So, okay, I don't get this. So even though he got the first kill, Ala can still win the 1v1 if we get to the ring?
So the ring, you can't respawn. That's it. It's sudden death. I know. Look, you could look as disappointed as I look too. This is how it works, right? Circles up, can't respawn. I don't make the rules. Don't get mad at us. Hell, don't even get mad at
I feel like I just got blue balled, man. This is so disappointing. What the heck? I was so hype about the Darius first kill. Oh man.
Look. Sucks for Saber. I do think, however, he could have run at Ala a few more times than he did. So I still think that hand on heart, I think Saber had a lot more agency than he thought he did. So yeah, unfortunately for Ultra Prime, not going to be winning side select on this one. JDG, they're going to be getting that through that win of Ala.
You know, Jamada, maybe for our sake, after this best of 5, there's a lot of things that we can get to test out. Because I think Saber's onto something here. The snowball tech is...
Snowball tech... Look, like I said, back in the days, a long time ago, when I used to coach players, they're getting homework all the time. That was a homework 1v1 to study. That was like okay, hold on. Snowball 30... I think it's 40 seconds at base, right? 40-second base cooldown. Maybe you've got Cosmic Insight, you chip that down a little bit more, you know, then we're looking at 35 seconds. It's a infinitely longer range flash if you connect it onto the target you want.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Sounds really good to me, especially if you know you're going melee into ranged.
Yeah. All right. Well, that being said, Ala does win the 1v1, and so JDG will be getting their choice of side select. But before we get into draft, we have to talk about the other top laner, because there's a cool little story about Wonjung from the side of Ultra Prime, Jamada, and it's that in the PCS, this guy had a reputation for solo killing all of his opponents with 26 total solo kills in the summer of PCS.
26 solo kills is a crazy stat, by the way.
Yeah.
Like under any context, pretty much any format, it doesn't matter how many games you play, 26 solo kills in pro play is absolutely incredible. And as the graphic highlights, Wonjung might be his name, but 1v1 is who he is in spirit. And that does really kind of bring me a lot of hype thinking about this topside matchup, right? There's a lot to talk about for JDG across the rest of the roster. And we've kind of covered that, right? Jungle how he ties in, Shun how he ties into Scout, Pays as a bot laner coming in, and you know the whole narrative there as a Korean import. Ala might have his hands full individually, depending on how Wonjung is supplemented in the draft. As speaking of, we hit draft for game number 1 here of the night. Ultra Prime taking up the red siders. Seems like JDG would have, of course, chosen blue.
Yeah. I'm curious what Ultra Prime decide to allocate in terms of R4 and R5 for their individuals, because like you said, if Wonjung does get counterpick priority, we might see a more aggressive carry style champion come out from him. But if we look at the series against Weibo Gaming, he mostly played for his team role. I think it was a Cassante, Galio, Gragas, and then Gnar. So like Gnar is probably the most quote-unquote carry-oriented lane counterpick situation that you could have gotten for yourself, but still you have some team utility once you're a Meganar, right? I want to see if Wanjiang is busting out something like the Ambessa or the Fiora, something that, when given a lot of resources, can actually completely warp a game state.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Now, as we get into picks here, Cassante first pick from JDG, it makes me kind of think that they're likely going to lean into some kind of lane swap, or at the very least they're happy and prepped to, I beg your pardon, respond to one. Ultra Prime, 2 power picks, immediately traded, right? Rumble, we've seen this one, first pick. JDG might have even been considering it themselves. Varus as well, left open in the first game, something we don't often see. I feel like it's often banned for the first, game or two, and then it ends up being let through to trade up with that Ashe, but not going to be the case. And now JDG going for early aggression, non-committal engage through that Leona. I expect an ADC match as well here. Just because that Varus has already been locked in, you don't want to have your AD pool get pinched too heavily. And I imagine FaZe, in this kind of situation, you don't necessarily see the engage tools fully up front from Ultra Prime. Something a little bit more safe, like the Ezreal, would make a lot of sense. But Shun is going to pull out the Nidalee early doors, and it's going to make Ultra Prime think here, do we want Junhao's jungler, or do we want to pick up this support for Rosie Love? One of these 2 roles is going to get pinched here on the side of Ultra Prime.
Jamad, it's Christmas morning all over again. I get to see Shun's Nidalee. For those that don't know, I am a Nidalee enthusiast. Unfortunately, I possess I'm going to be generous here, 100th of the skill that Shun has on Nidalee, and that's on a good day. So I'm always down to see a masterclass of one of the best Nidalees in the entire world lay it all down on the Rift. And as Ultra Prime clean out their first round of drafts, it's Rel accompanying the Varus in the bot lane, and they're already starting to target some of FaZe's options here in that marksman department with the Ezreal being taken off the board.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Imagine another safety ban as well. Something like a Xayah would actually kind of make a fair bit of sense. Just in terms of, I have Real Rumble, we don't want you to have any self-peeling tools available. We'll see though, because with something like a Leona, you can really go a lot of other aggressive options, things like MF as well. There you go. Can definitely match the laning prowess of something like a Varus. So I like that Ultra Prime kind of a little bit more happy to take away perhaps a bit more lane power out of FaZe's pool. As Nocturne was the first one, I'm wondering if something like a Sejuani is what comes up next, right? You've got the Rela ready for that kind of pull in. You need another long-range fighting ultimate to be picked up, even though, of course, Nidalee 1-to-1 has an excellent matchup into that Sejuani. You build up so much jungle tempo over her 1-to-1. It's something where, again, just setting up the team, you don't really want to have to play against. But Wukong also in that same vein, probably skirmishes a little bit better into Nidalee, has that skirmisher team fight. He's kind of the perfect hybrid of a team fighter and a outright skirmisher. So we've seen a lot of priority on him. We'll see where Ultra Prime decides to go if those 2 junglers band away.
Yeah, I think outside of Vi, Wukong has probably become the premier fighter jungler that you can take that just brings so much reliable initiation and utility. The Xin Zhao is probably one of the next best follow-ups that you can get. It's not necessarily great initiation, but you dash in, you can follow up on a pick with, a Varus ultimate or a Rumble slow from the Equalizer, Rel engage, of course. You can always try and guarantee a knockup on one particular target. The question for JDG is, how do they want to draft now into this composition that Ultra Prime have gone? And Ziggs was not the answer I was expecting, but now you have the power of both Siege and Poke with these last 2 champions in Ziggs and Jace.
I like this a lot, and it takes this composition in a completely different direction to what I was kind of expecting here for JDG. It puts it into a much more poke-orientated composition where you've got a lot of, strong disengage and peeling tools, right? Because Cassante existing with Pathmaker, that W is a ridiculous tool to stop from stopping divers to getting on top of your carries. You've got wave clear out of FaZe. I'm expecting FaZe will be piloting the Ziggs. Once FaZe hits level 5 and he gets Lost Chapter, Missing can just leave him alone, right? And if you end up in these lane swap situations, Ziggs still kind of fine for those, right? If he's able to hit tower in isolation, perfect. His dives, he's got enough burst damage that he can supplement a dive, right? And between him, Nidalee, and Leona, they should be able to dive a Rumble if that's the setup. And of course, mid game, that's where things get really tricky because then it's like, well, if we don't displace Pays out of the mid lane, he gets to sit mid, wave clear constantly. You've got Jace on the side lane. Cassante is going to be unmovable into either this Aurora or the Rumble. It's a real hard time if you are this Ultra Prime side. So honestly, big curveball that I feel like now, if I'm Ultra Prime, I'm thinking, wow, okay, how do I accelerate myself into this game so I have as much agency as possible, as opposed to thinking I can go into this mid game with my Rumble Rail composition. As long as I'm even, I feel pretty good about it, and I can try and just execute on team fights.
Yeah, the fact that there's not a marksman in JDG's lineup normally would, you know, give some concern, especially if there is a bunch of tanks on the opposite side of the map. However, Ultra Prime did not really draft that many tanks. It's just Rel in the support role, and if it, you know, if it's on a support economy, it's not really a front line that you're all that concerned with. You know, if it snowballs, that's a completely different issue, and then, you know, there's other things to worry about in that instance. And the nice thing about having a Nidalee on your team, you know, a lot of the times when you have such a strong AP jungler, you kind of want to stay away from drafting additional AP champions, but Nidalee is so situational in her damage. It's all reliant on hitting spears and trying to chunk people out if she decides to go like the Leandry's Horizon Focus trap build, so that you have some decent percentage HP poke. So having something like a Ziggs as supplementary and, you know, real AP damage that's more consistent in these team fights is totally fine, since you're also pairing it with such strong poke from this Jace mid.
Absolutely, Refa. That's what makes, again, this composition so much trickier for Ultra Prime to navigate into. Range of engage, very limited. It is very positional based when you're working with Rel. It's how close is Rel to the backline? Is she finding a flank? Does she have flash, right? All of these conditions have to be met to really enable these big combo combos. Now, lane swap going to be initiated here by Ultra Prime. JDG willingly sending Pays and missing bot, mind you. Everyone was kind of standing around the mid lane, waiting to get information off their level 1 wards. They will come down here, and they will match one Jiang. I think that's fine. One of the kind of early doors kind of developments of lane swaps was actually to start to put things like Rumble behind, right? I think it was one of the first things that teams started to pick up on as, hey, if we've got a carry in the top side, if we kind of happily opt into this lane swap setup, enemy top doesn't get to play the game, and it's why Cassante rose even higher in priority than he already was, unfortunately for many. But JDG very happy, I think, in this early lane assignment, as Rosie Love please wake up here as Lonesome and try to aid one Jiang on what is likely an impending dive eventually.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to give ourselves false alarms. And more than likely, Scout taking grasp on this Jace is probably just for lane sustain. And I hopefully not indicative of a full tank Jace build, because if this is a full tank Jace, then you don't really have that much physical damage in the poke department. I don't know if I'm too concerned, and, you know, it won't be a problem.
I mean, frankly, that's going to be a bit of focusy face check to the bush. I don't think it matters what build he goes this game. I think if I'm JDG, yeah, because there's not, you know, don't get me wrong, Junhao can eventually get very tanky, but there's not a dedicated outright tank on this Ultra Prime draft, right? Rel's going to be on support economy. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Scout ends up going tank, and I also think that it makes him, to a point, significantly harder to kill for a majority of this lineup. Sure. Whilst maintaining a certain level of threat, which I feel like Arla in All Out, Shun if he's hitting spears. I think it's okay, but I definitely do believe AD Jace will probably be the correct call here between the two, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I've seen weirder rune choices and then supplementing builds off the back of that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just purely for lane sustain and things like, you know, I don't even think Jace was taking fleet in matchups beforehand, but
no, he wasn't.
I mean, Grass just seems to be an overall superior rune choice if you're trying to survive laning phase, and the fact that Resolve Tree has so many good
It's got a lot. It's got
good
a lot of
runes
stuff.
in it, right? So
Boo me if you want. I play, or used to play a lot of Alawi, right? And Alawi obviously a fantastic graph user. I mean, it depends on who you ask, man, because that champion IQ checks people, people get mad about it, and then that just kind of reveals their IQ.
I mean, they're new. That's why they're getting mad, bro. Like,
No, I know. Waco.
oh, wait a minute, Waco forced to pop the cleanse. I don't know if Ala overtook this 1v1, but he's got Shun waiting in the wings, and he baits it well enough so that they can finish off Waco for first blood.
Yeah, and this wave is pretty damn big. Teleport is actually going to be used by Pays, so they're going to give Pays this big wave. Ala, all of your hard work, thank you, bro. I'll be taking that one.
07, brother man.
07. I mean, Ala did get the first blood. Scout, nice little sidestep. Dodges out on the stun. He's fine. No problem there. I'll do the damage.
Hey man, I was not concerned at all. Missing was there in Scout's back pocket. If Scout dies there, something has gone horribly wrong. I'm just gonna keep it a
something
stack.
bad has happened.
Mans went to the skies a little too deep there, but you know that was not the case. And now that they've got Missing aggressively pushing forward into the top quadrant jungle, there was possibilities of Shun looking for an invade and trying to track where Junhao was, but nothing will occur from there. We got a good replay of the top side.
Oh, I think actually one big point of note here is that Ala, I think he used Pathmaker on the Blight proc. He had 3 stacks of Blight on him. And I think if he Pathmakers any other bit of damage, he probably dies just up front. So, well played by him. I think he was just using it to get the gap closer and obviously the damage and stun, but the fact that it blocks out the Blight, extra bit of added bonus there. And you know, I just had a thought about your comment on going too deep in the sky.
Yeah.
If Jace dies, like, you know, obviously his Q and hammer form is to the skies, we need to just start saying Jace goes sky as an obvious reference to what it is.
Oh man, well, Waco's about to go to the sky right now as they send the bomb up high in the sky. And my goodness, Waco is not having a great time. 1v1 from Saber, tries to erupt as he tries to trap Scout in between worlds. Junhao is there, tries to look for the flash, pairs it with the wind becomes lightning, but Scout flashes towards the safety of his teammates. JDG got Scout safe in hand.
Scout did not go sky. He made it out of the play.
Uh-oh.
Missing.
Does he have the flash? Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Yeah. Waco was on his way back to the top side. Would have died there. Well, this early lane swap situation is, I think, going about as expected for JDG here with the Desante and Rumble. I mean, not too far behind directly against Ala, but you imagine if this was, you know, 1v1 standard lanes, Rumble's got, what, 20 more CS? Ala's probably suffered a little bit more, so you're seeing the power of why lane swaps can be super oppressive for a carry pick like Rumble. And of course that dive earlier on also set up Pays to pick up that kill and get that dive as well. So now they've transitioned him into the mid lane. Both these AD carry players going to be sat here now, probably on wave clear duty, but I know who I'll take for wave clear duty between Ovaris and the Ziggs. And it is not the former. I'll tell you that for free.
Yep. Especially since Waco is going the on-hit build, not the poke build, so a little less power in those piercing arrows to try and kill the wave as fast as possible. JDG are slowly accelerating this win condition of their composition, you know, especially when we get to the mid game where you start rotating Ziggs all around the map and getting turrets super low and then executing them. It's something that we really saw erupt as such a, I don't want to say a toxic playstyle, but just such an impressive playstyle in terms of structure demolition once Ziggs started being played effectively around multiple teams at the world stage.
I can tell you he was very happy about that. Mr. Orcs casts over in the LCK.
Hell yeah.
I think the Ziggs guy. You know, I feel like a lot of casters are like a guy of a champion. You know, like Captain Flowers or the Skarner guy.
Yeah.
You know, Shun is the Nidalee guy, despite that spear, I promise.
That was a Rapha spear, I'll tell you right now. That one hit my fridge, brother. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No one saw it, Shun. Don't worry about it. You know, Namera's the Ahri guy. We Ziggs is definitely his thing. I think seeing him mold over every inefficiency of usage of Ziggs might have been one of my favorite things of tuning into the LCK every now and again. For now, though,
Brother Dan.
Shout out to Brother Dan. For now, though, Ziggs is not going to be involved in this dive unless he walks up and drops an ult on Saber's head, as I think 3 members are about to be on top of Saber's head right here.
Yeah.
Difficult dive.
Saber's got to buy as much time as he can. Junhao is making his way on over. Saber has dodged out away from Shun and missing for now. One spear has only connected, but it's not enough as Shun now goes back in, tries to get that empowered takedown damage with the pounds, but Junhao has turned his attention on missing, and he's just left to the wolves. JDG did not execute on the play fast enough, and Ultra Prime are there to punish.
I don't even know if I can fault JDG for this. I think that was just good play from Saber. Point blank period. The ultimate and then the E back in to the ultimate at the last second before it fizzles to get the distance extender in terms of where everyone was from JDG approaching on that dive. Excellent stuff, and he's able to buy enough time for Junhao to show up, and missing pays for it with his life as Wanjiang also drops that equalizer from a fair distance. So good responsive play from Ultra Prime, but specifically from Saber, and JDG's play probably to set up for grubs goes a little awry, but as the dust settles from that play, they're still going to get these grubs, and it's going to be very likely 6 grubs over to a Ziggs and over to a team that's going to be very happy to side lane.
Yep. And for JDG, when we talk about feats of strength, that is now 2 epic monster objectives that have been completed. A dragon is still up on the table, and Ultra Prime have not made any notion that they're going to be taking it anytime soon while JDG are taking these grubs. So very easily here, Jamada, we could have JDG pick up these feats of strength just by securing the dragon, or if they rotate a lot of their members, which they seem to be doing now, to make this dive happen and take out this first turret.
Yep. And Wanjiang, no ultimate here.
Well, missing, tries to go for the solar flare, but Wanjiang is able to dash away out of it thanks to a well-timed flash, and now Ultra Prime are just once again making fools out of JDG as they're just outplaying them on the top side of the map.
This top tower is just not where JDG need to be, but also it's kind of where they need to be. This tower's so low. Actually, because PaZe has to go and respond to the mid lane, doesn't want to give Waco the plates in response. They're not going to be able to get this tower right now. You know, that was a demolish proc from Scout and a W away from there. This tower dive, it's not that the execution's poor per se. I mean, okay, sure, the ultimate from missing is subpar, but again, Wanjiang's flash is just well timed. If he gets hit by that Zenith Blade, then he probably does die, right? Gets hit by the center of the Ziggs ult. But it's the ignite from missing that draws tower aggro as he's trying to walk out. So unfortunate for him, but that's just how the play unfolds. And it's another good response from Ultra Prime on the dive.
Yeah. And I think something important to remind people at home. This new season, turrets are way less forgiving when it comes to dives. The overall damage ramps up super fast. And I wonder, Jamada, if JDG are just not used to it yet. They're not used to how little time they effectively have on executing these dives, because
I feel teams. Well, here's the thing, right? I think you eventually get used to it, right? The question is,
sure,
are they used to it yet? Just because towers have kind of been the. I mean, I think in terms of their damage and their ramp, they've been pretty samey for the last 2-3 years at least. But the spike in this current version is so heavy compared to what we've seen before. As
whoa, Allah is taking Wanjiang on a trip all the way across that turret, but can he get in range? Flash forward with the Natofa strikes. One more, that's enough. Allah sends Wanjiang back to the graveyard.
That is one hell of a champion.
K'Sante Gaming, baby.
Yeah, 1v1 Junk. Unfortunately, is 1v1. No flash, and just kind of barely gives Arla the angle for that wall drag, and I'm not even gonna break that down. we might get a replay of it depending on how the observers are feeling. That was a very clean 1v1, where Arla's of course already got Spirit Visage as well, so very tanky and gets a lot of that additional healing back out of the all-out form, so difficult to kill, and we will get the 1v1 replay, as it's all about the path maker connecting, and then that slow rundown that K'Sante so often offers, knock back, and then Arla just says, yeah, I could probably get the angle on this wall. And it's such a tight angle, right? So many Casantes are never taking this ult. Never in a million years, but Ala very happy to do so. And we spoke about how, you know, this is kind of a tertiary matchup, right? In terms of narrative, in terms of, you know, the importance for the game. And top lane often falls under that, but
Yeah.
Ala, under the context, very happy to take that 1v1 as Missing was very happy to take that cleanse off of Waco.
Yep. I'll trade Solar Flare for cleanse off of a AD carry without any really mobility any day. Now Missing, however, might get punished here. Still has a flash. He's going to look for the thickest part of the wall. Gets out safely. That's his flash gone. And it doesn't look like he's running Hex Flash, so not a lot of mobility for other alternative options here. JDG still, I think they're still okay with the move and the trade they effectively made. Waco should be an easier target to land or nail down if they get any CC on top of him the next time and he doesn't flash a Solar Flare, or you just land a Zenith Blade and into the rest of Leona's CC combo. So that's going to keep Waco on his toes.
Yeah, it certainly will. And even though Missing's been misplaced a little too much, he's not misplaced right now, and they're looking for a play onto Saber and Rosie Love.
Yeah, Rosie Love forced the flash. Another spear connects. Nice shock blast from Scout. Doesn't even matter. This guy rushed the Spear Visage. He still's got enough damage to pack behind that shock blaster to put down Rosie Love into the fountain. And Ultra Prime, slowly but surely, Jamada, they are losing grasp on control of this game. It's still just under a 3,000 gold lead for JDG, so the game is not completely over, but JDG are well in control as they're going to look for another engage onto Waco. We talked about it before. Solar Flare connects for the slow, and Scout tries to go all the way in. And thankfully, because he is tank, he's living for a while, but not long enough to get the lethality assassination down onto Waco. And Ultra Prime. Wait a minute! Kobe! Mega Infernal Bomb from Pace takes down 2.
Is he me? Is that what's going on here? The 3?
Yes, sir!
From Pace? Double kill on that ultimate. Scout put in a lot of damn work. Pace capitalizes on that. And JDG get that tower as well. So, honestly, it's just excellent work from JDG, all in all. Utilizing the power of Ziggs to get the tower, but also, I wanted to bring up what was killing Ultra Prime in these last couple of sequences. All this mid-prio and the rotation, just not able to respond in kind. 2 plays back-to-back, and then the game is just blown wide open. So much of it because how much damage Scout is oddly able to put out, as well as surviving, right? And then pays 3 net bet for this. Boom.
Woo! Yeah. That was Cinema right there. The fact that he was able to land the sweet spot on the Saber, which was the significantly healthier target, and Waco just needed to be within the outer ring to get knocked out of the stratosphere. As Scout forces Wonjiang to pop the equalizer, as the rest of JDG are corralling around this bot tier 1 for the dive. Rosie Love here to dissuade them, but Ala might join the party as well. Junhao now joins the fray. And this numbers being equalized by Ultra Prime means that JDG are no longer that interested in trying to continue the dive, but they will continue pressing for the minion wave. As Pays, all he had to do was just step up and knock out this turret with the satchel charge, and now the rest of JDG just gotta make sure that they are not overextending themselves, because Ultra Prime do have all numbers here and everyone's in position. They're turning right on to Missing, and he just might fall before Ala gets a chance to turn on to Junhao. He's already popped the Crescent Guard, and he's making his way out of this fight. Ala getting tangled up here. Mega Inferno Bomb gets a bit of damage right onto Rosie Love, as Ala is now going all out, takes out the support. Saber cutting off Shun from the rest of the fight. Pace trying to contribute whatever he can, but he's running out of mana, so this guy's got no more bombs to supply in this firefight. Shun still trying to look for the spears, and Scout sends it to the skies, looking for Wonjiang. A spear from Shun nails the needle in the haystack, finding Wonjiang in the middle of that clump. As now Shun is looking for another one, goes back in for the pounce. Junhao forced to flash away. Saber flashing on the left side, but it's still not enough. Shun finds Junhao before he falls to Waco on the backside, but Pays with Kobe. He teleported back, and he's got a full mana bar. He is the star of this first game from JDG. 5-0-2. This Ziggs is on a roll.
On a roll. 502, 2,500 gold ahead. of his lane opponent. FaZe is here to play. Might not be on that traditional hyper carry that we would expect, but at the end of the day, he's putting in some serious work here.
Yes, sir.
Missing. Definitely a little bit of a trend so far this game. He's been on the brunt of a lot of engages, maybe perhaps places he shouldn't be, but hey, if it's going to result in a fight that your team wins, maybe it's all part of the plan, right? There's dies super early, but it does put Ultra Prime in a very conspicuous position where they're just eating poke. So much poke. Waco forced out by a spear and also the Mega Inferno Bomb. And even though Ala steps a little bit too far forward, he's able to flash away and reposition. And again, keeping Ultra Prime kind of just on a string, really. Scout and Shun then, backside of this fight, continue to just push now the rest of Ultra Prime into the 2 teleports coming back, and there's not really much they can do, Ultra Prime, other than try and commit to the fight to kill Shun and to kill Scout, and they only achieve one of those goals as the FaZe over the wall with the combo. We're out that replay, and you can see already JDG taking control of the top side of this jungle is missing. I think might have to use his flash.
Yeah, I mean, JDG are 8,000 gold up into this fight, so if they can't pull this one off for Ultra Prime, I mean, this just might be done and dusted. And once again, Missing does fall for the greater good of his team, as FaZe is going to short hop over the wall, looking for Rosie Love as he takes him out for a quick double kill. Now going to look for more as Ala is rounding up Junhao in this corridor. Nowhere else to run. Ala picks one up for himself, making himself 5-0 and 5. 4-0 and 5, my bad. JDG, this is pretty much a 10,000 gold lead at this point, with the final kill, full ace off the map from Ultra Prime. And JDG, I think it's safe to say this game is over.
This game is certainly over. Don't see a world where Ultra Prime come back now. 10k gold lead. I think 3 minutes ago it was only about 3. So says a lot about the state of this game. Base broke open. I think it's time to start talking about game 2. And perhaps saying that for Ultra Prime, fortunately, Ziggs is not available for the rest of the series. And frankly, you know what? We need to get a dial. You know, we mentioned earlier, we mentioned Dorks earlier, we need to get a dial in, right? He is an LCK rep. I want to know how he feels about Brother FaZe coming over to China and doing a little bit of work here. First game of the split. As also, just keep your eye on FaZe actually right now. Look at the bomb right here. Just onto Waco.
Yes, sir.
Knocked back by Scout, mind you. And then the satchel over the initially to actually interrupt Rosie Love, but then he uses it as the vessel to chase him down. Really good stuff from FaZe this game. And I think I know who's getting game number 1 MVP.
And it's so fitting, considering that we had a lot of questions about this JDG roster, you know, about a lot of the individuals and, you know, the underperformance we saw in Demacia Cup. We kind of put a spotlight on FaZe for a bit in our pre-shows, saying, hey man, you gotta lock the frick in. You know, you've got big shoes to fill, and you come from insanely high highs in your career so far with Gen G. We expect that you should be extremely dominant in this matchup, and he is delivering so far on the Ziggs, as the rest of JDG now trying to sneak this out of con, but Ultra Prime, they sniff something's up.
They sniff something's up, but I mean, FaZe a second ago did not have a death cap. So I think they need to be very, very worried about the amount of damage that little Yordle has. And if they get grouped up, that
ultimate bomb is going to send them to Kingdom Come. Saber's already chunked out of the fight. Here comes Missing as he finds the Zenith Blade right onto Waco. And good night, as the marksman is still living to tell the tale before Shun sinks his fangs in and takes out the Archer. As FaZe finds another one onto Rosie Love, and the rest of Ultra Prime have just nowhere else to run. Junhao will use the Wind Becomes Lightning, but Shun just wants to end this jungler's life as he flashes into the Wolf Pit and takes him down once again. Saber also running out of areas to go, and JDG will completely set aside the Otacon and just run for the base, as Zhang does make it out alive, but I don't know if he's going to be enough to save this base.
That was old teleport. I think we would have just seen Missing take a very mystical journey across the map. As
crazy.
This base, this Nexus is not long for the world. And quick footnote before we see this Nexus die, as JDG are just farming KDA at this point.
Had
27
those
kills.
stats, JDG. You
Yeah.
deserve it. Such a dominant game one opener in this best of 5 where we have a lot of questions about how this JDG team is going to do, and they have a swift statement. We're here to play.
Yeah, questions answered, really, isn't it? Questions answered. They are not here to mess around. Not against the small teams that they expect to not make a deep run. Came in, absolutely demolished them game 1. I want to go back because there's not much analysis to be had in that game, to be frank, even for Ultra Prime. Lane swap sucked, and they got out-rotated because of the mid-prio once they actually put Ziggs and Varus mid. I'm not even going to try and make this like super broadcast, you know, long narrative. No. Good lane swap. Once Pace was in the mid lane, the rotations were just overbearing for Ultra Prime. Though I will give them credit. Like, look, they defended those first 2 dives fantastically. Yeah. After the fact, though, it sucked. It was not a good time to be an Ultra Prime player. Tank Jace. Tank Jace was actually the option, right? I'll go back on my statement. I said that AD Jace probably do a little bit more work. No, Tank Jace is stupid, man.
That was the thing that was frustrating me as I saw these accelerated shock blasts come out, and I'm expecting it to just, you know, tickle Ultra Prime. Maybe just a little bit of a scratch. It was doing decent amount of damage, and I don't know if that's just because, you know, Jace in his current state can rock that kind of damage with just building take items, or the fact that Scout was just that far ahead as an individual.
They've buffed Jace's base AD quite a few times over the last few years. I think this is also like it's a compounding issue of many different things, right? Jace is generally a pretty okay champ, right? Unless he's kind of very dependent on his items, right? If his items are weak, Jace is weak. But also, they've tried the balance team many times to try and push Jace away from tier builds over the years, and you know he's always kind of landed back on them because tier is just kind of good on his.
He wants to spam abilities.
He wants to spam abilities. Now we have a situation where we've got a tier item that gives him a shield on 2 of his most easily used abilities, as well as survivability, and of course the Unending Despair build combo that we started to see prop up as players kind of understand how tank items can be utilized. I'm glad that we're making progress as a community. Yeah, it's a concoction for a bit of a nightmare. And again, like with many things, I don't envy the balance team with this issue that they've got to fix, because yeah, Tank Jace is definitely something I don't expect to stick around for too long.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the history of certain champion fighters, whether they're assassins or bruisers or supposedly champions that deal a high amount of damage, at some point or another, there was some tank build that they were able to abuse. You think back to like Iceborne Gauntlet Echo and Grasp of the Undying, right? Or even with Fizz. It's a never-ending cycle. But as you can see, after the 2 turret dives on the top side of the map, you know, just restating what you said earlier, Jamada, JDG just had this one in the bag.
Again, because of the way that the draft was lined up, I think that if Ultra Prime don't get a good lane swap setup, this game just sucks, right? And I think that even though they tried to, you know, kind of negate a lot of the potential losses for Jung up in the top side, and then subsequently, you know, match the lane assignments. Again, being second to every rotation is just always going to put you on the back foot, and I think JDG were so happy to pretty much just eat them up every single time. And mind you, this game was not super clean from JDG, I think, right? When you kind of consider the context, missing quite a few times, caught out, you know, made plays a lot harder for JDG to execute than they perhaps had to be. And again, the responses were pretty tenable from Ultra Prime, but again, there was just no opportunity to take a 5v5 on equal footing, right? We didn't even see an objective contest that game. Think about that for a second. That's how one-sided that game was. If Rosie Love isn't in a position to set up for the Wombo, then there's no real world where Ultra Prime get to team fight appropriately this game.
I would love a stat if that is the first game we've seen in LPL that did not have a dead Otacon by the end of the game.
Ah, good shout. Very, very good shout. You know, I can't recall the last time that Otacon just didn't die. This is something for the stats team that we totally have.
That's not our job.
Yeah, you know, it's gonna be the funniest thing. I do miss being on the NC for that thing, because you would ask for a stat, like verbally, but do it accidentally, and then you would just hear it in your ears. Shout out Odea from the NC stats team.
Shout out Leo from the NA stats team.
True. Yeah, the stats people are awesome. I mean, people
Stats
behind the
people are
scenes that you
underrated.
guys don't get to ever see or hear about are awesome. Anywho's, I would love to know if that is the case, if that is the first Otacon to not die. But that just goes again to prove just how stompy that game was. Don't even need the buff to end the game.
Yeah. Well, this might be an awkward time to reveal that I did predict JDG to win, but I said 3-1, as in I had faith that Ultra Prime would win at least one game. And if every game is like that from JDG, especially the man on your screen with the bomb demolitionist himself, I think we're going to bed early, or I'm going to bed early.
You're going to bed early. I'm getting a midday nap, or I'm playing a game of Civilization 5 before the LEC starts. It's one or the other. I think this is how this night is gonna go. Yeah, JDG took no prisoners this game, number one, and I have a sneaking suspicion that if we end up in a lopsided draft again, that it's gonna be a very similar story. As Pays hits that green in that replay there, double. I mean, yeah, just excellent game from Pays. And again, I need a dial-in from Orcs. Orcs, there's no way you're doing anything today. Someone clip it. Tweet this at him.
Is the LCK not on?
The LCK is not on today. No.
Oh, they're
it's
not
on Mondays and Tuesdays.
No, then he has no excuse.
Yeah,
Get
he
this
has
man.
no excuse. Yeah. There's no way he's not tracking his LCK child on his journey.
Dan, get on
LPL.
Discord, brother. Send us a message real quick.
Yeah, look, we can get you involved. You know, I'm sure it wouldn't be much on anyone to just quick call in. I'm asking.
That would be
much of
Pog. Just have like a hotline league quick guest call in. You know, it's like, hey.
Dude. Yeah, could be. But yeah, Pays doing a good one for Ziggs Nation. I can say that for free. And it does also offer up a very interesting question that we kind of had posed, I suppose, or answer to a question we had posed of how frequently will we see mages in the bottom lane? Because I feel like we haven't seen too many so far this season. Ziggs has always been very in-out of meta, and it's very, very team dependent, right? Individual dependent on who happens to be happy to play Ziggs. So, yeah, very good stuff from JDG, and at the very least, Ultra Prime's not going to be in the game any longer.
Well, I would love to go down this rabbit hole of mage bot lanes, and the fact that in my solo queue and flex queue games, I'm seeing Victor bot almost every other game. Shout out to Hulk on our broadcast team. But I believe it is time to step away from the broadcast for a quick second while we get a chance to refresh here on both production and actually, before I do so, give me uno segundo, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a very important message that we would love to share for all of you. First of all, it's very early in the morning for Germana, and it's in the middle of the night for me. So sometimes it's hard to stay high energy for broadcasts. Luckily, thanks to support from coffee subscribers, fans have donated 65 coffees to us to keep us wired and ready. Since this is a fan-run broadcast, we rely on subscribers from Coffee, YouTube, and Twitch to support the stream. So, if you subscribe at VIP level on Coffee or YouTube, your name will appear here once a week on screen. You can also unlock other perks like early access to content and access to exclusive channels on Discord. Join now. With that, we'll be taking a short break. When we come back, Game 2 between Ultra Prime and JDG. will be on your way.
So unfortunately, that's just how it goes. Skarner, maybe he needs to be buffed. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, Captain
Flowers,
Flowers would be
I'll
all
take-
over that.
Yeah, I'll
Hell
take
yeah.
that PayPal. I'll take that PayPal donation now, buddy. I've done my propaganda work. Anyhows, I think we're about to get into the draft.
Hell yeah.
Let's
Well,
shift into the arena. And Ultra Prime on blue side.
if on the next patch we see a Skarner buff, I know exactly where and who to tell Clayton to PayPal, brother. I got you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, look, another Skarner ban. I wonder.
The win
Wonder why
rate
that's
remains
happened.
undefined, and I believe the bans were pretty much the same as both
Yeah.
games so far.
Pretty
Whoa.
much. Oh,
Yone
That's-
first pick.
that's a slam if I've ever seen one. So, Yone, B1. Let's see how Ultra Prime decide to follow that one up, because there is no rel available, right? There is no, and that's kind of the premier setup tool for this Yone in terms of the mid-game ultimates, as they already picked it in game 1. So JDG gonna have a lot of freedom to kind of pick apart any of the S-tier picks that they feel like are super powerful inside of the meta. And Bessa's gonna be one of them, so Arla likely to be piloting that, and I do expect this will end up being a jungle pick for Shun, and it will be. It's gonna be that Zyra, so early, fast clear. You know you're probably going to be dealing with an AP jungler just because of the Yone slam. Looks like the Lilia, just off that hover, right? It's probably the best AP jungler to go with Yone. Sleep into, you know, a easy setup, Fate sealed. It's just very tried. It's very tested. And that Ultra Prime, plenty of options here. Are they going to go for an AD top laner like they're a Renekton? Super reliable and blind, and even in, you know, lane swap situations, can hold his own, and that's going to be the case. Will forego the AD or the support matchups for now.
All right, Jamana, tell me what are the lucky lottery numbers I should be looking out for next? You're predicting everything so far in the draft. Like, I need to know, man. What's the sauce for today?
No, there's no source. It's just sometimes things are a little bit too telegraphed. This wouldn't be telegraphed though. Maokai would be pretty odd. Obviously, you never talk about hovers, but it does get locked in. So seems like that's gonna be the answer, I assume, to Renekton. So it could just be Ambessa mid here out of Scout as the answer. Mind you, of course, Ambessa picked when Yone was picked, and that was the only information that JDG had. So I'm expecting this to be an AD, well, obviously Ambessa's an AD champ, but, you know, the AD mid answer to this AD mid of Ultra Prime, because they've already got that AP jungler locked in too.
Sure. And even though, like, Maokai could be flexed around to support or jungle if you wanted to get creative and put Zyra in the bot lane, it doesn't really make sense considering the order of operations we just, you know, witnessed from the draft phase. You see Renekton slammed, and then JDG, you know, probably naturally just want to get their top laner counterpick of choice out the way before things get banned, and now it just gives them more room to start limiting that bot lane pool from both Waco and Pays respectively, which is already happening. As you called out, Misfortune gone, Caitlyn, a choice that they have taken away from Pays, and now Jhin bites the dust as well. So this leaves things like Corki. Oh, no, Corki got banned already.
Corki
Ash was
got
in the
banned,
first
yeah,
round.
frustration.
And then, of course, there can't be any Varus or Kalista, since Former was used in the first game and Kalista was also banned in the first round. So what does this leave up here?
I mean, the kind of B tier hyper carries, I suppose. Things like Jinx, things like Sivir, Zeri, you mentioned Corki was being banned. Those are the ones that come to mind, you know, up front. Maybe we get like some weird Twitch, action as well. We saw some Twitch Lulu, which I think, even though it didn't end up winning, that was TT versus LNG. It was very, very threatening, but honestly, Jinx, not too bad. I'm surprised we also maybe don't get a Zarya here out of Pays, all things considered, right? It's very easy to self-peel against what's up on the table for Ultra Prime, but for now, happy to just lock in that Jinx, and it does give Missing the opportunity now to see the bottom lane, and maybe this ends up being that Maokai flex, right? That we were potentially alluding to, if JDG feel like the Maokai will pay off more dividends in that support role in the hands of Missing.
I will say, I would be down for a Maokai support, but also I think it would be nice to pair something like a Thresh or a Tahm Kench with this Jinx to give it a little bit of extra safety if things get really hairy, considering all of the engage tools that Ultra Prime have at their disposal, especially now with the addition of Rakan into the lineup and the fact that they have a Xayah for themselves, it pretty... Oh, well, as you said, got to be careful on the hovers before it officially locks in, but they're going to confirm the Lovers duo bot lane. This makes it already difficult for JDG to try and lock down the Xayah in particular, but there's so many threats on this composition from Ultra Prime. I think JDG are totally fine playing front to back and using the power of their massive disengage tools with Zyra and Maokai already locked in. The Nautilus, I'm going to be honest here, Jamana, I'm a little surprised. That does not offer nearly as much safety for Jinx, and so it puts it more on FaZe's shoulders to peel for himself.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of sat here considering what options JDG had in terms of, you know, self-built, and I'm kind of surprised we don't get a Renata here. I think that would have made a lot of sense just because of how short-ranged Ultra Prime is generally, and it also then offers you a lot of protections in many different ways, right? Makes dives significantly harder because of the W, so if a lane swap does end up unfolding here, there's that. There's the obvious mid-game power as well, and if it's a 2v2, then just the plain laning power. So very interesting to see that the Nautilus is the choice of support here for missing, just because it feels like this composition, realistically, it's never really wants to engage, right? It never kind of wants to go in. But it doesn't mean Nautilus can't be used in an appealing way, it's just that he's probably not the best in class for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the tools that you have at the disposal are relatively slow and not instantaneous. You know, even your guaranteed route with the passive enhanced auto attack, it's kind of slow. You know, Nautilus has that big long wind up to really get someone CC'd and locked down if they try to engage onto the Jinx. Otherwise, it's the most immediate thing you can do is a point blank ultimate or, you know, immediate hook as soon as someone engages. So, but I think the only reason why they would go for a Nautilus is because they want to have some guaranteed point and click outside of the Maokai for you know, target picks. And if there's ways of going forward with this composition, then that way when you are ahead and you want to, you know, force your lead and leverage that snowball even further, you don't have to wait for the opposition to walk into you. You can't force the fight. Oh my god, level 1 already! Oh. Hang on, Jabata. Hold on to your butts right now. I'm on the edge of my seat as Sabers gets locked up, tries to flash away. The flash from Scout, and it's not enough from FaZe. One rocket is not enough for the dream to be alive, for that first feat of strength to be accomplished by either team. Saber lives alive and gets to go home.
I love how, of course, you know, production in chat, they've got to pop up that Game 2 graphic for the sake of the VOD. And already, a couple of flashes, 4 flashes already blown. And Saber almost drops for first blood. I think we could be in for a little bit of cinema for Game 2.
I'm so down.
I'm very ready. Hopefully, though, it's a bit more competitive than Game number 1. Because JDG, again, lane swap, fantastic setup. Rotations were very quick. Ultra Prime could not keep up. And those rotations, you know, eventually boiled over and made it very, very hard for Ultra Prime to answer, as this is going to be a very explosive mid lane matchup. When I think about it, I'm Bessa Yone, 2 melee champions with a lot of mobility under their belt. A lot of damage, even early on offer too.
Definitely a bummer for both Scout and FaZe, who invested both of their flashes after Saber already committed his to try and guarantee the kill, and it didn't even happen. I'm assuming it was the quick heal from Rosie Love that kept Saber alive without getting a chance to look back at the replay. But, you know, now there's an opportunity for Ultra Prime if they want to make a play on the FaZe within the first few minutes of the game. This is an AD carry that does not have a way to dodge out of a grand entrance or a blade caller. That would just have to be FaZe relying on quick time cleanse to get out of harm's way.
Yeah, now, fortunately for FaZe and JDG as a whole, Junhao, he's actually pathing topside, so
rip.
Doesn't have to worry about that one. As frankly, by the time that Junhao, you know, with the jungle, maybe top lane play, though Arla's full health and playing Maokai, does scuttle crap. By the time he makes it back to bot side, FaZe's flash is going to be up. So
yeah,
I don't even think that play is going to unfold, unfortunately, as You look at the small difference between FaZe and Missing's flash times. They flash at the same time level 1. So FaZe has Cosmic Insight. Waco did not have Cosmic Insight.
No, he did not. And he hooked Rosie Love out of the dash. Oh, that is so tragic for Ultra Prime. But for JDG, they're up on the up again with first blood.
Yes, they are. It's kind of a nothing burger as well for JDG in terms of what they put into that play to get out of it, right? So FaZe gets that first blood, and he's going to get a plate. And look at the XP difference as well, as Waco is going to miss all of that wave too. So that is a far, far bigger first blood than it actually looks like. That is going to suck for the next couple of minutes, especially if this is a big base here for FaZe. And it kind of is. It's Berserker Greaves being able to space out Xayah and Rakan. You get all of the movement speed together when they cast, or when Xayah casts W, is a very, very big deal. I'm sure FaZe understands that very intimately. Though, as I say it, the rotation is coming out for top side bit of action here. So Arla's likely going to either reset or set up this top gank, and then TP down to that stacked wave on the bottom side as they look for Jiang.
JDG are so proactive. It just seems so easy. Ala's able to set up that plate and give a little bit of extra damage for FaZe. Now Ala flashes in just to secure the kill with the Ignite as Missing hits it. But Jiang is totally fine. Maybe a little ambitious from Ala, but I guess he had to do it in order to guarantee a little bit of that extra damage to threaten. And it does force Jiang out of this lane for now. But he will be TPing back to soak up the wave.
Yeah, he's going to make it down to that bottom side wave, so he's pretty comfortable with this. Jiang's also going to teleport back and, you know, find most of that wave up there as well. At the end of the day, I still think this is going to end up being fairly beneficial for JDG for FaZe and Missing, though it does give Waco and Rosie Love almost 2 whole plates just off that one push, so maybe not as lucrative as JDG were hoping the total transaction of that play. But still very much good, as now Rosie Love making his way up to the top side and just wants to cover Jiang a little bit here. But also, those grubs spawning in 30 seconds time, you want to have your support around if you're looking to possess them.
Doesn't seem like FaZe or Missing are in that much danger here. Both of their flashes are back up and available. So even if Ultra Prime were really trying to sync up with Junhao and force a play, Junhao is not level 6 yet, so he doesn't have any hard crowd control available yet. And Jiang, no flash. Very hard to reliably set up that engage, so they're at the whims of getting pushed in by this range bot lane from FaZe and Missing. Shun makes his way to the top side to get ready for that contest.
Arla's actually up here as well. Junhao is going to get one. Oh, Shun, bit of a miss, mate. Junhao.
E?
He's not going to be able to. No, he's not going to be able to steal it with E. Just held onto it for a little bit too long. Now top side. Breakout here.
They're going to get feisty. Missing is not level 6. Jiang is. That forces his flash, and now this Nautilus is completely out of the fight, forced to recall. But he does not go down. So it's nice for JDG as you called out, Shun didn't necessarily have a clean smite on one of the grubs. It was a little early. I guess he was trying to steal away the one that Junhao was focusing on, but thankfully for JDG, they secured the last 2 grubs, and neither team really picks up a overall complete epic monster objective. So JDG still in the lead for overall feats of strength, but Ultra Prime not completely out of that race.
Yeah, not yet. These lane assignments are very interesting. The constant rotations here from JDG, going from game 1 here to game 2 as well. I'm kind of wondering how much stock do JDG putting behind some of these lane bullies, because at its core, as I try and kind of break down the theory of it, that's kind of what the only trend I'm really noticing, right? Because think about it, FaZe got that first blood, got all the plates on that bottom side play. You could keep that 2v2 going like for longer just because of how early it happened. The grubs, you don't really need to reset for another wave or 2, or even then you could just send Missing up and keep FaZe on the bottom side. You'll probably clear out fine in the 2v1. So very interested to see how JDG continues to evolve these lane assignments, because that's about the only thing I can really track is, hey, you know, Rumble was in game 1, lane bully, Renekton's game 2, lane bully, and you know, we didn't really get to see the 1v1 play out in the early stages between Arla and between Jiang in terms of Rumble versus Kasante. Missing feelings of a little bit. But you started to see, you know, Jiang was kind of getting the better of Arla in the earliest stages in terms of CS, but that gap closed because of all of these rotations here from JDG.
Yeah. I mean, JDG have played an incredibly proactive game, both Game 1 and Game 2, and this proactivity is what really gave them such a huge momentum that was almost insurmountable from the side of Ultra Prime. As we take a look back on top side, Ala is fairly low on HP, but it's quite tanky. This tree ain't going down anytime soon. And with the priority that JDG are trying to invest in pushing through this bottom lane, they are giving Xun the space to set up and take this first dragon of the game.
Arla does get that trade back, but that's still a little bit rough, and Junhao's in the area now. Maokai, he's not easy to dive, but this Maokai might be on the easier side of the spectrum for sure. He's going to look for a recall. Junhao should just about see him, and he does. He's going to interrupt it. Sneak options there. Do it late.
Zhang has already popped the dominance, so he's got to go in now and execute. Flash does not come up in time. The damage is clean. Junhao and Zhang, and they take down Ala.
And just more importantly, it's true CC. You know, 40% HP that Ala had left down to 0. Sleep into the empowered stun of the Renekton. Not much you can do about that. And there might not be much you can do about this rotation, but missing. Doesn't have anyone else in tow. That dragon was traded over, though, by JDG, so it was more of a cross-map proactive play from Ultra Prime. And speaking of a cross-map proactive play from Ultra Prime, they're looking onto Scout.
Yeah, quickness and Grand Entrance locks down Scout. The Fate Sealed, not enough to make it so that Scout does not get out alive. Just a quick flash, and he is alive. JDG starting to feel the pressure of moves from the side of Ultra Prime, trying to fight back and ensure that JDG are not just completely walking all over them like they did in the first game.
Yeah, getting Scouts flash there, not too bad, as Missing will be spotted out on this ward. And Scout's teleported here, and he's got the Eclipse, so he's got a lot of damage.
Good flash by Zhang, sidestepping the root from Xun as well. So Zhang evades danger once again. Unfortunately, does have to give up his top turret. However, the rest of Ultra Prime are completely invested on the bottom tier 1. And if they can just get another minion wave pushed in, they should be able to beat them to the punch. Yeah, this is totally Ultra Prime's objective to claim. Nicely done by Ultra Prime to be able to compete for first brick. And now JDG really have to rely on getting the next 2 epic monster objectives to secure for themselves the overall feats of strength.
I mean, this is still kind of an uptrade for JDG. You have to remember, first Tower Blood gold, I think, significantly reduced this patch. It's not really the worst thing in the world when you're getting 5 grubs, right? You got 2 objectives, really, for the price of 1. And I believe, looking at that mid lane tower, that Pei's also got a little bit of time to himself to pick up more gold. So, frankly, whilst it's nice that Ultra Prime get that first brick and it keeps them competitive, the feats of strength overall, still very, very, very big uptrade for JDG, as we've still got to wait now another couple of minutes before we see the next objective. And I think this gives us a little bit of time to revisit a topic that we were talking about in game number 1 surrounding Pei's, actually, so very topical. Ort has reached out, and he has given me the rating for that Ziggs game. And if you're curious, he gave it an overall 8 out of 10.
Okay.
So solid performance out of him. And I will say he's given me some footnotes as well. He's good. He knows how to build Ziggs, and he actually consistently had the best Ziggs builds in the LCK last year. So that's good. He complemented the Void Staff early because the base damages that Ziggs has are actually so high that it's pretty broken. But he was so fed he probably could have just gone Death Cap, but going it third was also pretty OP. Oblivion Orb kind of unneeded that game, but frankly, so far ahead. Can doesn't know. That part's my part.
Yeah.
And he also didn't go Biscuits, which a lot of pros apparently still haven't read the patch notes. Don't know
that it doesn't give him mana anymore.
So he just didn't go Biscuits, so very good job from our resident Ziggs entrepreneur.
Hell yeah.
Cast.
Thank you, Dan. Miss you, bro. We got a minute and change before we get our second dragon of the game, as rest JDG are doing a pretty successful job of bullying Ultra Prime out of that bottom river and using the priority of Pays in the mid lane, get an extra bit of chip damage. Oh, Rosie Love really wants to send it on the Shun, forcing his flash out. Rosie Love is a little far, and he doesn't get a chance to battle dance away to safety. And that forces Saber's own fate sealed. Now Ultra Prime are down a bunch of engage tools for this upcoming dragon.
Yeah, and there's no way Ultra Prime are contesting this. I feel like it's going to be really rough. Rosie Love is so much of their engage. Saber no ultimate as well. It feels like a death sentence to go and poke your head in here. Though Pays are missing, they are looking for a reset right now, so maybe the window will be okay, and so actually is Shun. Unsure if maybe there's some crucial items to pick up, a little bit of extra gold sitting in their inventories, but it's a good flash from Shun, and sometimes as a player you're just committed to a play. You know, like you started it, it's got to finish with what the intended goal was. But unfortunately, JDG moved the posts, and no one from Ultra Prime could catch up.
You know, in some of the opening games from Ultra Prime against Weibo Gaming just this past week, you know, Rosie Love was someone that did receive a lot of praise on the broadcast because his Nico game in particular, finding such creative flanks, gave so much space to Ultra Prime to take over these fights. And I think you can tell that Rosie Love is still trying to find those flanks and be creative. And unfortunately, you know, you're playing against a team who has pretty much really locked in, and they're much more synced up than what we saw out of the Demacia Cup performances just a month ago. So I imagine that I don't want Rosie Love to stop looking for these flanks, but he's definitely got to be much more careful and aware of where everyone is when he is looking for them in the first place.
So it has to be Rakan very squishy as well. To a Nautilus, it's, hey, you know, you face check a bush, Nautilus is ready in there waiting for you. You will probably not get to move. Chances are, or somebody else comes and plays in a bit more CC. So a lot is fairly kind of levied on Rosie Love to start some fights, but also, I mean, Junhao as well. Something I do notice with some Lilia players in general is, especially when they've got a Yoda, like some big setup tool, right, whether it's Rumble ult, MF ult, sometimes they just don't understand that their job is just to flash in, hit as many people as possible with 1Q and then press R, right?
Yep.
And I do wonder if we're going to see a Lilia symptomatic of that, or you know, resembling that, or a little bit more aggression in general.
You know,
sometimes you can just pick it and be a little bit useless.
Yeah. You know what's a good indicator of whether a Lilia is going to be very passive and just wait for her team to engage, or they're going to be aggressive? Hang on. Holding that point, Rosie Love dodges the rocket. That certainly would have been the end of his life, and another death added onto the scoreboard, but just barely slips right on past that rocket.
You know what? I think I know what the answer to your question is.
Oh, yeah?
And it's whether or not they purchased Lucid boots.
I was going to say Seekers, but that also works too.
Seekers is a good indicator. Teleport's coming down, Herald's going down. So JDG, will they get it, and will there be a fight after the fact?
1400, Rosie Love is in. 1100, can Shun secure it? Yes, he does. Zhang is on the left side trying to route out the plant lady, but Junhao is in trouble because the rest of JDG have collapsed on the bottom side of the map. Back onto the top side of the map. Zhang almost has taken out Shun, gets one more dash in, and takes out Plant Lady herself. JDG losing out on the support as well in the trade, but at least for them, they got the Rift Herald, and that does secure the feats of strength.
Yep. Do indeed. I think they had it from that Mountain Dragon, but either way, Herald secured, and they're going to be able to use it probably on the mid lane tower to break that one open if I had to wager a guess. Saber will pick up this tier 1 rather on the top side. Messy fight for JDG, and very split, right? I think the beginning of that fight, the way that Rosie Love approached it, kind of sent JDG kind of awry because it was from a multi-angle attack too, as Junhao and Saber look to approach from the bottom side. Let's get a look at it in replay though. as the Herald is just awkward to finish off because of where the eye is. Engage goes on to Shun, but then you can see Missing's going in on 3 because Allah has a flank that is followed up on by Scout as well. But then you look at Pays, and he's just in such an awkward position, so you can't really hit an important target whilst all of this is going on. So Waco gets the kite out, Junhao even gets the flash and kite out, and eventually the repositioning favors Ultra Prime on the disengage of JDG. They're able to pick up 2 kills on the retreat.
I really like how you pointed out how just scattered everything was, because when you look at how ideally a composition that has a Zyra set up, you want them to funnel into all of your plans, and it's a lot easier to get that guaranteed burst for the resets on this Jinx to really run through this team. But because that never happened, it doesn't matter that Pays is, you know, relatively ahead of Waco. He never got rolling, and so a lot of the threat just kind of dissipated in that fight. Now, JDG, for the first time, are behind in gold against Ultra Prime, and a lot of that gold lead has gone back into the pockets of the top side of the map. Both Junhao and Jiang relatively ahead, and we got, it's not Lucidity Boots, Merc Treads, but we do have a Seekers here, Jamada, so I'm expecting the next time Junhao's got that flash button up and available, Q flash on the multiple people, it's gonna be a lot of them going to sleep.
Save me! Terrible sig. Terrible doesn't even get the damage on the charge off. A little bit unfortunate, but I do like the point out there of that Seeker's arm guard from Junhao. Now, look, I'm even going to add on top of all of the points you made about Junhao and the potential for Lilia to have a good game here, is that even with the Seekers, I've still seen Lilia's not look aggressive.
Oh, no.
Plays. So, we'll track him with a massive amount of eagerness. He doesn't have flash right now for this fight, as Hextech Dragon is spawning up, and you would expect that Ultra Prime do not want to give this one up for free. They've already given up the first 2.
Teleport coming in. Scout arrives to the mid lane. Decent E onto Shun, but good God, Saber just got blown up! And Pays got the resets rolling, so you do not want to mess with an excited Jinx as Pays runs back into the river. Dragon control surely on the side of JDG. Ultra Prime, I think the best that they can do is just try and jockey for mid control and priority and threaten this tower.
I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to threaten the tower, though, because Dragon's already dead. They just have to rotate out, so...
Dang.
One measly Raptor camp is going to be pretty much all that they can get. Maybe because that Blast Cone's there, you get the Krugs as well. But, yeah, it kind of sucks, though. I mean, JDG are resetting. They are not respecting this Atacon timer. Teleport's coming down here for Saber, so... JDG are going to rotate over because this Atacon buff does not die. It does not die quickly.
Look
so
where Rosie Love is. He's waiting. He's waiting for JDG to enter, and now he's going to try to look for Shun that gets his flash out. So the engage now turns right onto the front line of JDG. Missing could be the first one to fall, but Saber gets burned out once again, and Pays gets the resets, and he's excited, and he's rolling through every single member of Ultra Prime. Good night. It was a nice attempt to use the Otacon to bait them in, but JDG just played it way better than they expected, and this Otacon is now gifted freely.
I mean, honestly, I don't even hate the idea here from Ultra Prime, but the reaction time of the Shun flash, it just completely breaks apart this engage from Ultra Prime. The pronged attack is thwarted pretty much entirely. Let's get a look at how quickly Saber just dies. Double root. Doesn't have the untargetable ability that Waco has, unfortunately. And as you take a look here, Rosie Love, I think off vision. It's just, yeah, Shun flashes, just straight up, just reacts in time, and then rooted up again. Here Saber is, and at that point, Paige just gets to play the game for free. Scout was already dealing with the Renekton as was, so JDG. We were talking about how this game is competitive, right? Even though that Dragon fight wasn't really much of a fight before. How Ultra Prime maybe had some ways to play the game, but the Atacon buff on hand, the way that the execution keeps on falling in favor of JDG, it just continues to mount the pressure on top of Ultra Prime right now.
And that gold lead that Ultra Prime briefly had, it's gone. now swings back over into the hands of JDG. Rosie Love once again maybe angling and posturing for an engage. Gets a decent grand entrance on the backside, but Jung has already fallen as Saber. Really great fate sealed, but this is the Otacon GAs that are being taken off the board, so JDG, they don't mind at all. They're going to continue the siege, and Ultra Prime are now down on health bars. It might have been enough to stall the siege, and Junhao not going to pop the Lilting Lullaby.
They have got to nerf this, man. I remove it, Riot, please.
Riot, please. Oh, you know, I think Scout is okay that Waco dodged the public execution, because if he didn't, then Scout would have dove far and deep, and that would have been the end of the Otacon GA. But Ultra Prime, they're starting to struggle here, Jamada. I'm not gonna lie. They're trying to hold on desperately, especially Junhao, to this lead that he did have for himself. Still 3-0 on the Lilia. Zonya's completed, but you know, I'm starting to feel a little bit of that the concern you had. When is Junhao just gonna say, I gotta sack the KDA and just get in there with my Zonyas and look for the engage for my team?
And this is the thing, he's got to send it, right? Whenever JDG just very briefly stand on top, he's got to go in. So long as he, of course, has the angle, right? It's always about whether or not you have the angle on Lilia. Because he is so strong. I mean, he's kept up with Shun despite being in the, you know, game state and position that his team is in. Again, you know, this composition from JDG, it does kind of want to play front to back. It wants to kind of move as a mini death pool, right? So if you can break this apart with multi-angled flanks, with a big engage from Cilia, things can look positive. But it's just been time and time again JDG reacting to plays that Ultra Prime have tried to set up, and yeah, it's been a very big broken record game, unfortunately, for Ultra Prime, where things just don't work despite the creativity of how they try to approach some of those plays.
Yeah, just goes to show that Flash is insanely broken and needs to be removed from the game. I'm just kidding. I'm not actually advocating for that. But it's one of those times where, like, Rosie Love was like, oh my gosh, I almost had this guy, but he has Flash. Or like, oh, if I only had Flash, I can guarantee this engage from happening. And, you know, more times than not, JDG have been, you know, just better on the execution when it came down to the nitty gritty. Now, an engage on the Scout does get his Flash. That's a summoner spell gone, and the fourth dragon of the game has spawned. This is Hextech Soul on the line for JDG. Scout, no Flash, but still has many tools available in his kit to dash and dance around the fight.
He does. Still has that all, like you say. Rosie Love, he's looking for a play. It's awkward.
Oh, they find Pays, but public execution from Scout delays the engage and gives Baby Pays enough time to survive. But Waco commits his own Flash to get rid of the wall and assassinate the other marksman. Big shutdown as Junhao is in the backline with the rest of his comrades as they take out another member from JDG. And that was the moment we were waiting for, Jamada. One moment of brilliance from Ultra Prime to swing this game out of the hands of JDG.
You know what? Just Route 1 football from Ultra Prime. They've tried all of these fancy set plays, try and go for these multi-prog. They just send it down mid. Rosie Love straight through the entirety of JDG. It's arguably the most rudimentary engage they've had all game, but it's the one that works, and it should net them Baron on top of all of this. Ala, I don't know how much he's really got in the tank to stop this. It's him and Missing versus 5. There is no damage on the table. This should just be Ultra Prime's Baron to take.
And Saber has rejoined the fight with teleport. Oh no, Super Mega Death Rocket! Oh my god, it got so close! But Junhao secures the Baron. But now it becomes a dance of how many people from Ultra Prime can survive and escape. As Scout joins the fight, they've got Hextech portals, so everyone from JDG is piling on in. But Ultra Prime have seemingly escaped for everyone except Waco. I'm sorry, brother. Someone's got to die, and you're the sacrificial lamb that's left on the slaughtering table. JDG will take at least one, but for Ultra Prime's sake, they deny Hextech Soul, they deny Baron, and the game is now back to even state.
It's at least playable, right? It was starting to approach a bit of an untenable situation. I mean, JDG's composition is still one that you know, in terms of how it interacts with Ultra Primes, the game is never really over, right? But again, game state, Hex Tech Soul, that turns into a Baron kind of easily. Could have got real slippery real fast by Ultra Prime. Hold it out firm now. I'm so surprised that that engage worked. I'm still thinking about it from Ultra Prime. After all of the shenanigans, all the different ways they've looked for these fights, that's the one that goes through. They stick it.
Yep. Sometimes you just gotta overload on the amount of buttons just for one target, you know, just to guarantee, even if it seems like overkill. It's JDG defending the remnants of this tier 1. The Baroned up cannon minion does not do enough to take out the turret outright, but Ultra Prime got another wave on the way, and JDG cannot stay to defend it. Ultra Prime, they finally did it, Jamada. They took out the tier 1 in the mid lane. It's not game defining, but damn it, I'm gonna be happy for one thing for Ultra Prime.
Be fortunate. Hey, Pays, you know those chompers don't work on minions. I'm just press love the game. That's gonna be tier 2 down here as well. Scout can't stop this from happening. So a lot of gold swung into the pockets of Ultra Prime yet again. And when you kind of zoom out, take a breath for a second. We've been very in the moment in this game. That could be huge for Waco, especially if he can finish up that third item, because when you look at the upside, you know, Pay's already sitting at 4, 29 minutes into the game, is a big deal, and it was why it was so crucial that Rosie Love got on top of him earlier on, right, at that dragon fight. Pay's has so much damage up front and on offer right now that if he is ever able to free hit any of these fights, it is just, it's kind of just over. I don't know if Ultra Prime can deal with that much DPS for a consistent amount of time right now. So they need to keep their eyes on Pays. They need to keep on tracking his flash time, right? It's going to be back up by the time they probably find another engage onto him. If they can just force it out and then disengage and then look for the play after the fact with their own flashes, more just overload on top of it. And maybe, just maybe, there's ways back into this game for Ultra Prime in terms of continuing to overbear JDG, put themselves in the lead.
Next objectives up on the table. Baron, 2.5 minutes away. Another dragon, I want to say 3 minutes and some change from now. So there's some time between both teams to just trade waves, try and jockey for vision control on the top side of the map, since Baron will be the first one spawning for control. And then around that time, Jamada, I believe everyone will have all their summoner spells back up and again, so everyone should be playing on a relatively even playing field. If Ultra Prime try and do something similar where they all overloaded a bunch of their buttons, hang on. Oh, I thought Saber had lost his flash for some reason. Must have been a visual bug. But as I was saying, if they do it again on Pays, you know, he only has 1 flash and 1 cleanse, and you know, if they all sync it up, that is your one hope in winning these fights.
But now they're overloading into mid JDG a little bit. They're contesting the mid waves as best they can, because they know if they can get vision, they can set up and kind of just keep an eye on Rosie Love. That's the important thing, and that's why they're kind of sticking together, trying to track where the support could be right now. As teleports coming through from Saber, and Ultra Prime, they know this dragon is crucial. Rosie Love's going to get spotted on vision here, and that's really important for JDG. They need to know where this guy is 24/7. Just to make sure that Pays too much danger. Speaking of danger,
looking for John. Just want to point out I was completely wrong on the dragon timer. I thought it was 3.5 minutes. It just spawned, so
it's up now.
It's up now.
Oh,
my bad. Ooh, good hook. Looks for Junhao. He's gonna pop the Zonias, and he's forced to flash away, so he can't use his ultimate proactively. He's gonna get one lilting lullaby onto Pays, and he takes a quick nap before he cleanses it, and now the jungler from Ultra Prime is gone. Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't get that much damage off of it, but Waco is in so much pressure that he's forced to pop the Featherstorm. John goes for a flash-in, desperate play, and he pops his GA, takes 1 support with him, but he's got to deal with the rest of the squad from JDG, and he's not lasting that much longer. Saber, no, not today. Fate sealed. He sealed his own fate by trying to tango with the one and only Pays, as he just blasts him back to the next century.
Yeah, great flash from Page. Just that minor bit of repositioning there probably saved him. Saber ultimate doesn't actually even go off. We see the animation comically. still dies. Looks like he has it by the HUD standards, and that will be Hextech Soul going over to JDG. Spoke about 5 minutes ago. That dragon went over. It would have probably been Baron, and then it would have been game. Well, it looks like that sequence of play is about to happen as we take a look at the replay, and Junhao just playing with fire, gets caught by the zap. Dash interrupted by the dredge line, and he's forced to Zhonya's, and he comes out of it. Even though Arla doesn't quite get the initial flash W, the root from that ultimate comes in, and FaZe able to cleanse a way out of that sleep so we can start moving forward and keep up with the rest of JDG as they look for the rundown. Waco's ultimate timed well to ensure he doesn't get rooted up, and the dive forward from Jiang just a little bit too far forward, considering you're doing it for missing, though I'm not sure if you can really get out, considering where Arla was anyway, so 1-for-1 still feels fine. As we come out of replay, people are dying!
Yep, Jamada, and they've already lost 2 on the side of Ultra Prime, and another Lilting Lullaby is all too late as JDG take a quick power nap. They're back up and refreshed, and there's no jungler to contest them for this Baron, so this objective is easily in their hands, and I think JDG are just a couple fights away of finishing out this game.
Yeah, should be indeed. I think Baron, Hextech Soul, it's going to be 2 overbearing. We're looking at a game 3. Ultra Prime, they've done a lot to make this game difficult, especially considering how game number 1 ended up unfolding, how this team fight ended up happening, and it was just, yeah, face checks from Ultra Prime. They have to go in to see what's going on if they're out of vision resources, and unfortunately, when the only resource of vision you have is champions, that is how it's going to unfold for you. JDG pick those up, and now they have Baron. Pick up this tier 2 on the top side, and you'd really love to see them crack open the base with this much power with the buff. 2.5 minutes. They're going to take a reset now, and I imagine they will start to siege up through mid, through bot, and look to get as much damage done as possible.
Albeit a series of unfortunate events from the side of JDG, we pretty much expect the outcome to swing a certain way. I want to start getting ahead into, game 3 discussions of what Ultra Prime need to think about when they're not just, drafting compositionally wise, but how they're playing the map, how they're trying to match up into JDG, and some of the strengths that they're already showing a lot of reliance on in FaZe.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Racken, because I think JDG have been very creative in their lane assignments early on. They've been willing to lane swap or accept lane swap situations, but also, again, post that kind of initial level 1 setup, hold that fort.
Holy moly. Jong burning down, Ignite, finally takes him out. Junhao also forced out of the fight. Here comes the public execution over the wall. Good night, Rosie Love. And there's only 3 members left standing from the side of Ultra Prime. There is still a Lilting Lullaby available. Junhao, no flash available. Saber forced to use the Fate Seal just to retreat back into the fountain, but Waco doesn't get to survive. Junhao and Saber are just begging for mercy, but JDG, there is no mercy in this house, as JDG will claim a 2nd game of the series.
2nd game of the series, 2-0. Little mishap in the mid game there through, frankly, determination through Ultra Prime to find that engage onto FaZe. But otherwise, a mostly clean game, 70% of that game, pretty well played by JDG.
Yeah.
And they just kind of slumped through Ultra Prime by the end of it. Very, very decisive game overall, and I think JDG is still showing intent, and especially as we were kind of starting to highlight before that game just very abruptly ended, around the macro, lane assignments, swaps, willingness to cross map, whether it be towers, objectives. JDG are really, really switched on right now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing, and this was also kind of a bit of an out there draft on top of all of that as well. So I'm happy to see that this is not the same JDG that we got out of the Demacia Cup. Yes, it's only into Ultra Prime, but there is still a much more engaged version of JDG that we're seeing right now, comparatively to then. Of course, that was the only case study that we had to go off of, but it seems like the tales of JDG's potential demise can very much be surmised as a bit of a myth.
Yeah, or at least for the time being alleviated. Now, we definitely gave Ultra Prime a lot more credit after what they showed against Weibo Gaming to be a more formidable opponent than just someone we expected for JDG, regardless of their Demacia Cup performance, to just kind of roll over. And they're doing that. They're rolling them over. There's a couple moments that Ultra Prime, show a little fight in them and able to, get at least a couple decent punches back to show that they're just not completely getting destroyed. But this is the result that we were expecting when we just look at both rosters on paper and taking the Demacia Cup performance completely out of the rearview mirror and just looking at it blank slate day one. This is the JDG that everyone is excited for. And, outside of the scope of just this group, assuming this is their series to claim and they, get out of groups alongside with more than likely Weibo Gaming, you look at the other powerhouses in the other groups, Jamada, like Anyone's Legend, BLG, Top Esports. These are going to be the powerhouses that JDG with this new roster has to stand up to. And if they're being this proactive on the map, I'm very excited for those potential matchups.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, this is some of the more proactive map play I think I've seen out of a team, right? Which is why I'm so excited about this roster, and I've been not singing their praises despite the Demacia Cup, but I've been trying to hype it up because I feel like there's a lot of attention on, of course, things like the IG roster is very fun, right? There's a lot of other individual moves, like Tarzan over to AL and Kanavi to Top Esports. And there's a long list of roster moves which are fun to track. But this roster, I feel like, has not really been given the time of day by many, at the very least in the Western communities. I'm not sure how things have fallen, actually, now that I think about it in the Chinese communities in terms of how they feel about this JDG lineup. But again, with so much name power in the individuals, with room to grow as well, I think is an important part for a lot of these players still.
Yeah.
I feel like you can only really get better as JDG here, and I must say that if we ignore the Demacia Cup, this is a pretty good floor to set overall, as we roll through some of the replays here. And this was that one fight, right, out of Ultra Prime, in fairness, where, again, if there's anything I can credit Ultra Prime for this game, it is the consistency of the creativity of their engages.
Yeah.
But then, out of all of the engages that work, it is the most Route 1 forced play of them all.
The most smork way of getting it done.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it still doesn't get them the position that they need in the game. Because again, JDG just continued to execute on some of these fights just that inch better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think there's any much. There's not much I could really add. Ultra Prime tried multiple times, right? And you can applaud that. A lot of the things that we were excited about based on just the first two games against Weibo Gaming, they tried again, but sometimes it's just a hands diff. The reaction timing of these small micro movements. It's like, well, guys, I don't think you can discredit Ultra Prime in the way they took some of these fights. Just sometimes you gotta be able to play faster or react faster, and that's a lot easier said than done. But heading into game 3, there are now 20 champions that have been removed from the table. There's a lot of possibility in terms of champion pool and creativity. And, if you want to look to Ninjas in Pajamas for inspiration, there's so many pocket picks and niche champions out, available. We have over 50, 60, 70 different champions available in this crazy game that we've been, attached to for the past 15 years or so. Ultra Prime, I think it's time to dig something up and start cooking. I don't know if, just straightforward is going to be the way.
Ultra Prime do not have that psychopath named Doimbi in their mid lane, so
unlucky, man.
Unless well, who's surprised about who's surprised about the MVP here? Unless Saber has something really special in the locker, I don't think we're going to get anything too far off the beaten path, unfortunately. As yeah, really, really good stuff by Pays. Again, it feels like a bit of a difficult game to talk about because of the nature of how a lot of these fights played out. Again, I feel like there was kind of one key win condition for both sides. For JDG, it was keep Pays alive. For Ultra Prime, it was murder Pays. And
Yep.
well, I think you kind of figure out how things went by the fact that Pays ended up getting it.
Yeah. You wait. Hey, they got the murder Pays part one time, and every other time was in JDG's favor. Fortunately, the numbers way out. But to alleviate back to what we were talking about with JDG and Pays at the top of the show, you know how we talked about Pays, you gotta lock the frick in, bro? You know, just put Demacia Cup, a thing of the past, and behind you. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce that this is the official debut of Pays in the LPL, and he is delivering. There are no notes. I don't even care that the series is not over yet. I am this confident that Pays is delivering. And side note, if for some reason Pays now just runs it down, I'm so sorry for caster cursing you, but I don't think that is going to happen. I think Pays is going to deliver once again, and we're all going to go home early.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think look, as I kind of mentioned, and I spoke about coming in, Pays, look, they give him the correct kind of setup. Systematically, JDG, I think, have always looked best whenever they have like a crazy AD carry to really play around. Ruler, now Pays. It's always the Koreans, man. It's always the Koreans here for JDG. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about for this roster, and Pays is definitely one of those, one of the bigger people I feel like to be excited about for JDG here.
Yep. And for anyone also excited about Pays at home, don't worry, the series is not over yet. We still have at the very least one more game, since this is a best of 5. So when we come back from break, Game 3 draft will be on your screen.
lot of effort to make this series competitive, more so the game 2 than the game 1. But you know, come against sure only Ultra Prime 3-0, it's a statement, and it's like, hey, we're not here to muck about. Go into their matchup against Weibo later on after Chinese New Year, things could look really, really good for JDG if they can, you know, move into the next portion of groups here in the LPL, next portion of the format in that 3-0 score, as we are here for picks bans. Game number 3, JDG will remain on red side, as if I recall, the rules still are you lose, you get side select, unless it's all preordained. Can't actually recall how LPL are doing it for this year, but traditionally has always been first game, obviously now is side select 1v1. After that, loser gets side selection.
Yeah. I think we got confirmation from our boy Alk in the chat. I would have fully trusted you on that one, Jamada. You are the, you know, resident LPL expert in the casting room right now. You know, you've done more LPL time than I have. So
you're too kind, young one. You're too kind. But I do appreciate the niceness in your words. Bans for JDG remaining pretty much the same. I can't recall what their third ban was, but for some reason in my mind, I think it was an AD. Okay, well, they didn't ban Ash last time. I'm pretty sure that was Ultra Prime, but they pick up that mantle this time around.
Yeah.
But Kalista, Skarner remain those bans. Ultra Prime thinking about the Vi, and I mean, to be fair, it's off the top of my head pretty much the only Premier engaged jungler still up and available. I suppose there's a Sejuani, so maybe we end up with a Vi Sejuani. Very enthralling jungle matchup, but it does depend on how JDG want to respond if this gets locked in, and it does.
This is the first time we've seen a Poppy ban in the first round from either team. So I think that switch up alone, Ultra Prime were trying to field for one of these power picks from JDG that, you know, this time around they were forced to ban the Ashe, and I think they had run with Corki Ashe Vi most games. By sacking those two, they said to JDG, hey man, we're going to get one of these picks. And, you know, Vi just being in the meta, doesn't matter what else has changed over the past, you know, few splits. She's just so damn reliable with her ultimate. But at least for the side of JDG, Pays finally gets his hands on Ezreal this early on in the draft, so he doesn't have to worry about it being banned. And of course, yeah, they get Vi, but shouldn't get to Wukong.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of teams will probably take the Wukong trade, especially if you can find really strong supplemental engage around it. One thing, as I recall, because it was Hovered, it was Victor that's been banned very frequently by JDG. And if Ultra Prime don't pick it up now, I wonder if that's just going to end up being the priority. Like, that's the tell. Like, the JDG were banning it very frequently. You have an opportunity to, sure, blind it here, but then potentially ban away 2 mid laners, because you've got a pretty easy R4 for top lane right now. You know Jax isn't going anywhere but top, so go Victor, ban away go ban away 2 more mids that you don't want to deal with, right? Something like the Azir, something like the Akali, and then you just very happily sit in the mid lane, scale up. Ahri could also actually be the other thing, now that I think about it, that they remove away here from Saber. And as for Ultra Prime, it's like, well, top lane picks, what do we not want to deal with as the Jax? A lot of the frustrating matchups have already been picked in prior games. So maybe top lane bans drop in priority, unless you're looking at the real niche picks of Hala, in which case Udyr to kind of deal with a lane swap. Sure, maybe you ban out a skirmisher like Fiora at absolute worst case. It is the Sylas they remove away though, JDG. So happy to deal with Ahri. Now we'll see where Ultra Prime decide to go for their final ban.
Maybe another top lane option that would be problematic for Jax.
I mean if we're thinking like strong lane swap options, Ornn is one that comes to mind. Malphite, wow, okay.
Wow.
They are not only digging, but very much respecting the capabilities of what Arla can lock in here. Gragas still up and available though, so it's a lane swap option, top lane pick to me, to Arla. This is what this is signaling in my mind, but also something that is very good one-to-one into the Jax, right? All about the negating. There's the Ornn instead of that gives them the supplemental engage that JDG need for this composition, and of course the scaling aspects as well.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past JDG. Whoa! Trinamir mid! And Elisa board!
What?
This is what I was talking about, Jabata! They're cooking! And it's coming from Saber!
Well, this is interesting, to say the least. So, Trinamir mid, haven't seen it for a while. Have they even really touched it from when it was, you know, strong a few years ago? I feel like
2021 summer was the last time I remember seeing
systems around it changed, but it, as a pick, didn't actually get directly nerfed. Galio's support here for missing into this Elise pick. And honestly, I kind of like it. You've got a lot of very strong disengage tools. Victor loves champions coming into him because it means that he doesn't have to go towards them to put the damage out. So having a massive Galio ult on top of you anytime you get ulted as Vi sounds like a pretty good deal. And then the taunt as well to stop Tryndamere from right-clicking people. This is a very, very explosive draft. I don't know, though, for Ultra Prime, how this game looks if there's a lane swap. If there's a standard lanes, great. But lane swaps are always the spanner in the works here that, frankly, you can never rule out. And I don't know how to tell you this, chat. I don't know how to tell you this, audience at home. JDG, they've drafted for a lane swap. They've got Ornn. They've got lanes that are very, very good at dealing with dives, right? Through Galio and through Ezreal. Galio is also excellent at just hitting level 2 and, like I said, dealing with dives. Just go walk towards Ornn. Not that he needs the help in surviving the dive anyway. And Ezreal gets the farm for free. As exciting as this early game could be, I hate to be that guy, but lane swaps are unfortunately the nullifying and very likely thing to play out here as we load in towards game number 3.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
Elise has repel. Smile.
Well,
I don't know if it's gonna be enough. I felt like being an ass and just playing devil's advocate.
I feel much like in the jungle, Elise needs to hit level 3 to be useful in terms of the additional bit of damage that she kind of needs. But of course, excellent at bouncing tower aggro around. Let's see how JDG play this one out, though, because my expectation is they probably won't want to play these lanes out standard, right? Or if they read that maybe Ultra Prime are trying to match a side swap, a lane swap, then they just do the exact same thing. If we get standard lanes, I'll be very, very surprised. Though, as I say it, everyone is doing the standard scrum lines. JDG being a little bit aggressive and pushing forward into the jungle.
I'm going to ask what probably is a dumb question, but have other Victor mids been also running Grasp of the Undying?
Occasionally, yeah. When you have like a media matchup like this, you see it come up. And,
yeah. Okay.
Again, it's just about poke, just about a little bit of additional sustain as well.
Yeah.
It does feel nice. It's just one of those runes that, for the time being, I don't want to say it's flavor of the month because it's strong and it's been being picked for a little while now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people are starting to come to the understanding of how strong the resolve tree is as a whole. You get things like Demolish, you get things like, I forget the name, but the health stacking one. It's escaping me right now.
Overgrowth.
Like 3 hours of sleep. Thank you for Overgrowth. And all those additional stacking aspects just make it super, super powerful. And actually, just as a point of interest, may I remind you that Tank Victor does exist. And it does revolve around having Grasp. And if there was ever a game to go tank Victor,
it's a lot of melee.
It would be this one. Like Iceborne Gauntlet, you get the armor and slow into what is, I mean, like, you know, as far as it's basically 4.5 meters, right, with Kai'Sa.
Yeah.
So you could very easily see a Grasp of the Undying plus Iceborne, and, you know, at most, maybe it's a Riftmaker or a Leandries, right? And that's about as much AP as you get, and Scout just works off the base damages and survives. Though I will say, JDG will be lacking damage, and I would worry about how much they could actually output in response to Ultra Prime. But it would keep Scout alive, and at the end of the day, you have to be alive to deal damage.
Yeah, and if he's alive for that much longer, for a hero's entrance to actually complete his channel and make the counter engage possible, you know, I buy it. Now, Junhao has skipped a couple of camps to make sure that he can arrive on this bottom side of the map looking for that vault breaker. It's just a simple sidestep for missing, but he's already burned the flash, and Not a flash, just the ignite. He's not going to even try and escape. Just accepts his fate. And that's first blood for Ultra Priming.
Yep, super easy. That's what I was saying. I'll be surprised if JDG are happy to play out these lanes. Not seeing a lane swap here. Definitely an interesting choice given the trend that we've seen in terms of how active JDG have been around being very engaged about the lane assignments that they've played out so far this series. And the gank, a little bit untelegraphed, right? It's 3 camps into bot side. Pretty much here for Junhao as he's going to take a reset. And the Shun, unfortunately, hunting will not find anything down here.
No dice for the Monkey King. He will be able to pick up this Scuttle Crab and at least allows him to have completed 6 total camps, but because Junhao had snuck away that blue buff, he will be feeling a little sad in the department. He does not have a way to constantly have extra CDR. Mana not necessarily a problem for Wukong since its mana costs are not necessarily that high, and I feel like with these jungle pets, you really don't ever run out of mana if you're managing your abilities well anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But they are preparing for this mid lane play.
Yeah. Just trying to match each other here. Saber shouldn't be in trouble though if Shun makes it here. Certainly will be.
Flash, and it's not in time. The last auto attack is completed by Scout. And despite burning both summoner spells, Saber goes down.
Saber goes down, Scout gets that kill. And I don't know how to say it, Ref. I need to see Scout's first base. I need to know what he wants to do this game with the build. It's going to be very, very, very fun to track if this ends up being tank. Rosie Love's here to support Junhao, so Shun might have to give up these Raptors, though he certainly doesn't want to. Junhao doesn't have Smite, so that's Shun's.
Oh
so
my god.
We'll take up the big one.
XD.
A little bit anticlimactic, but Shun is very, very far behind. You can see he's almost the whole level down. Missing is man marking this constant invader right here, because if Shun loses these Krugs, and he certainly will, again, no Smite. I don't know if he got it.
Missing tries to delay the invade of Junhao and Rosie Love trying to collapse on the Shun. They both take a lot of damage on the way out. And based on the numbers, I want to say Junhao got the bigger Krug and Shun got some of the smaller stuff. Could be wrong, but overall, the strategy of try and put Shun behind is definitely the game plan of attack for Ultra Prime in this third game.
Yeah, it's working. And again, no lane swap. This is kind of what gets to happen here, for Ultra Prime, and things look real nice in this early game as Scout, that last bit of burst damage, maybe a little bit unexpected, but certainly Victor, even in these early stages, in terms of those kind of trades, always going to look quite favorable if you eat the entire Chaos Storm. But JDG, definitely a little bit shaken by this early game as Shun is an entire level down, and there's not really too much he can do about it, though this cross map here is definitely going to help him out, getting these camps whilst Junhao picks up grubs. Certainly going to be a big deal as Pays also gets this mid lane plate with missing. So the cross map actively happening here for JDG, and should net them back a little bit of gold overall. It's going to feel nice just in the immediate future.
I'm liking what Ultra Prime are at least attempting so far in this game 3. They haven't really gone for the dives that we were somewhat maybe concerned that was going to be something that both teams were going to try and attempt or, deflate. But in this case, it's just been, hey, you have an Elise on your team. It doesn't matter if it's jungle or support. You can be very proactive by invading. You have high base damage. You have high threat potential on any champion in the game early on. And the fact that it is a support, not attached to having to farm camps to keep up in levels, you just, use the support item mechanic to keep yourself relatively useful at this stage of the game. You get to move with something like a Vi who has a little bit of CC if you land the Vault Breaker. And while Wukong can skirmish efficiently, Cyclone is really the game breaker that allows Wukong to be super competitive. Otherwise, you're just hoping that you don't get CC to death.
And hopefully he doesn't get CC to death. It's very possible in this game, right? You go in, if you're going at the angle where Elise is, then it's like you eat the Cocoon, then you eat the Vaiku. Everything just starts to look kind of rough. We'll see how Shun gets on. This is definitely one of his stronger performing champions in recent years. So he's very, very tenured on it. As many junglers are, but some are far less efficient than others, as Arla sidesteps that Q. That's going to be big in keeping him alive here.
He's going to call the Ram, but doesn't get a chance to actually use it because he was CC'd to death. And for Ultra Prime, that's the second kill of the game going their way. And John being able to pick up some of that gold is now really putting the gold snowball in the right places on the team.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I'm not sure, maybe as we panned up, if Arla had just used that Bellows Breath so he didn't have it to buffer the Vi ult there. But certainly should have been able to have done it, even at that closer range. It's not the hardest thing to predict, unfortunately. Maybe he had the ult coming in, so he didn't want to get stuck in the animation of the W. Could also be that. But dive successful for Ultra Prime. Get themselves a little bit of gold. But again, cross map still kind of going on, for JDG. Not losing out entirely as they got that Dragon Master. That was all going on, and Shun had vision.
Ooh.
Because of that clone. So he gets that Smite Steal off too.
Doing his best to keep up and make sure that he's not getting completely counter jungled out of the game. And, for his credit, it's only a few hundred gold in favor of Junhao. I want to answer your question that you posed earlier in the game. What build is Scout going for? Well, there you go.
Yeah, damage. Well, that's fine. Would have been nice to see the tank build here, though.
It would have been neat.
It would have been neat. I do feel like JDG probably would have lacked a little bit too much damage as Scout's gonna learn about being on the end of damage, I think, real soon, though. That wave clear, frustrating, not gonna matter, forced to dive anyway.
Yep, Zhang leads it, Junhao follows up, and everyone's there for the party, and nothing Scout could have done, no chance in even trying to burn the flash. He knew that his fate was pretty much done and dusted. JDG, the best that they can answer is look in the mid lane, get some extra plates for pays, while the rest of Ultra Prime, be glad in the fact that they over-invested for that play and guarantee first brick. And I think because they also got first blood, that's feats of strength completed for them.
Yeah, feats of strength getting there. Oh yeah, no, you're right. First brick, just done already. Just no one has tier 2 boots except for the Elise, of course.
Hell yeah.
Come up, so not bad. And again, you have to remember, completing the feats of strength doesn't give you anything immediate. Right? I think this is something that I think as viewers, and maybe even as broadcasters, we need to drill into viewers. It's about when the boot upgrades eventually happen, and the difference maker that they can or can't be. But for now, it's still good omens and good signs for Ultra Prime, right? It's a 2k gold lead, and I will say, if things kind of stay open like this, Ultra Prime can accelerate this game kind of quickly, when realistically JDG have to wait for a little great sidestep on that. But I have to wait a long time really to scale up, right? You're talking Ornn, Victor, Ezreal. These are champions that only really want to start kind of being active around 2 items at the earliest.
Yeah.
So this gives Ultra Prime a lot of freedom in these next maybe 10 minutes or so of farm, though. Scout's gonna get a little bit accelerated. They cross map this tower on the top side.
I mean, Ultra Prime are definitely taking advantage of this natural early game strength that they have drafted for themselves. I mean, this Elise support alone, being able to freely roam, and as we stated before, because it is support, you don't necessarily care about trying to keep up your gold and income the same way that you would as a jungle Elise. You can just show up in lane, collect your minions, or get your poke off, and then boom, you're an annoying spider that is pretty lethal at the early stage of the game, and you get to reap all the benefits without having to worry about the maintenance and the upkeep. As missing.
Oh.
Might face check into Saber, but thankfully he is pretty darn tanky. He's not going down anytime soon.
Yeah, I was worried there for a second because he hit the Scryer's Orb, and I don't think it actually clipped Saber in that bush. Still able to walk out though with the taunt, so saves Scout the potential of getting collapsed on. But again, it's just continual rotations here from Ultra Prime and kind of giving JDG a bit of a dose of their own medicine from some of these earlier games. But again, as to kind of be by design of this drop, and again, the question still in my mind, why no lane swap JDG this game? If there was ever a game to do it, it was definitely this one out of all three. And again, it just does things like, look at this top lane lead that Jung has, right? It's 4K. Ornn not going to be able to hold Jax, you know, in a side lane forever. Same for the Tryndamere, actually, which, now that I think about it, Malphite was a genius ban.
Yeah.
Malphite is excellent at dealing with both of those champions on a side lane. In fact, Malphite can kind of outright win a 1v1 versus Tryndamere at times. It's quite particular, I will say.
So what you're saying is they could.
Yeah, it could.
Hell yeah.
They will pick up this dragon, so one apiece. JDG picking up that first one, really, really big for them. Because again, they want to scale. So not being under any threat of, you know, this potential early soul is also gonna, again, alleviate some of that pressure that they were probably gonna start to feel. Scout. Put a little bit of damage onto Jung here.
Does Jung need the flash? That's the real question. Scout.
Nope.
Not enough damage in the tank. Does force him away from this lane, but you know, doesn't really seem like Jung was in any real need to collect any minions since it was already pushing into Scout's tower. JDG just playing the map as slow and safely as they can. As you know have already pointed out, this is a relatively slow and scaling composition that they have for themselves, and if they can survive the early onslaught of this roaming Elise and Vi Death Squad, they'll be in a better position. I am curious, though, how well they're going to be able to handle the side lane split push of both this Tryndamere and this Jax, because the fact that, you know, Tryndamere not so much accelerated, but Jax definitely in a better spot. You know, I don't know if Scout will always end up be in a position to maintain this Jax.
Yeah, that's the main thing, right? Scout and Shun are going to try and dive this Jax right now.
That's one way to put pressure on them, but Shun takes a little too much damage from the turret, and Jung realizes it at the last possible second, getting one flash bonk in. Scout trying to be applying a little bit more pressure, but just doesn't have enough damage in the tank yet to force Jung out of lane. Okay, he's basing now, but not enough to kill him.
Definitely not enough to kill him, and yeah, Shun just underestimating how much tower damage he was taking, but also just a real good read from Jung to realize that that flash forward of the W would give lethal over, and he makes that 1v2 work. Excellent stuff on the weak side. And yeah, I mean, JDG will just be on the back foot. Like, I don't know how to frame it to you for the foreseeable future of about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. As Ultra Prime, outside of having what was a very good lane assignment here, you know, Scout into the Gian, Victor into this Jax, that 1v1 kind of turns it all around. Bounces back a lot of XP off that solo kill. He's going to do just fine for the next 5 minutes or so. Just sitting here and kind of soaking up all of this pressure.
JDG currently thinking about making a dive onto Jung on the bottom side of the turret, or at least forcing him off and ceding defense of the structure. This will give JDG a little bit of extra gold in their pockets for gold. Ala looking for potentially lethal onto Saber, just a trade of ultimates so far, and Saber will respect the potential lethal that Ala does have, and will stay out of range, as now Ultra Prime their answer. Send the Rift Herald mid lane, get a little bit of extra damage with the charge. Pays is able to ensure that it doesn't fall, cleans up the minion wave. We got Dragon spawning in under 10 minutes here, or 2 minutes.
Yeah, God forbid it was 10 minutes. I mean, look, I think the close enough. The thing here is really how far can Ultra Prime push this lead? How much harder can they really force the issue in these side lanes specifically? They broke down this tier 1 very, very low, right? It's not quite dead, but one minion wave and a stiff breeze will do it. How much they can snowball off the back of this, because JDG still a little whiles away from being able to play And I think Scout's going towards Zhonya's second, so he's looking to really nullify some of this engage. Pays has the Triforce, but hasn't quite finished up the Muramana yet. Whereas on the opposite side, Ultra Prime, pretty sure, off the top of my head, as you can see, the scoreboard's not up on the bottom side. We don't control that on your screen. Pretty sure Waco is close to a second item. For now, though, Ultra Prime, very happy to kind of just coast through this game, pick up objectives, and we'll see how far they're willing to push. As finally, Prime's back up, and as I was saying, you know, Saber close to a second item, Waco close to a second item. Hayes has his 2 items completed, and they're playing for this tier 2 on the bottom side of Prime.
Nice sidestep and dodge from Rosie Love using the repel to get away from Call of the Forge God. Forced the flash, though, from the Ram charge of Allah as he was trying to combo it onto Riddle. Or the little rock thing pillar he makes for that knockup. Now the Spider-Woman is down a flash, but not completely the end of the world. Otacon is spawning in just under a minute here, and 2 item spikes are slowly coming online for everyone. And I just want to tie everything back together. Despite Ultra Prime having a little bit of very fun and explosive early game action, they haven't really steamrolled this game ahead as Jong... Oh, wait, he has survived? No way! I thought he was dead!
I was like,
I didn't realize he was channeling teleport. I thought the
Oh
homeboy
my
just said,
God.
yeah, I'm dead. I might as well just stand here and, you know, just suck it up. But, man, that teleport channel allowed him to survive.
My go. Oh, holy moly. Of course, as well, because, you know, that channel on the TP now, so short, right? So short. And having already casted that ultimate scout, he can't interrupt it, even if he noticed. And I've got to say, is it me or did the particles around the TP look weird? Like, it was kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was happening.
I mean, underneath the Chaos Storm as well, mind you. So he starts TPing here. And I mean, never mind. It's a long channel. He just doesn't die. That's it. Like, period. That's so funny. Well, Ultra Prime, I think they're... If anything, they're winning the mental game right now.
Yeah.
And if this Atacon goes down, mind you, it's always voracious, right? So you get the GA. GA in this kind of situation where you're messing around on side lanes, stuff could get funky. You can trade for tower. I mean, tier 2 just got taken by Jian on the bottom side, so that's no longer an option. But you know, you start trying to break the base open. You die at the base to respawn, to then walk back out to Baron. You know, all of these kind of stupid things can start going on if JDG aren't careful. But crucially, Pays has hit second item and Zhonya's is available for Scout. So if JDG want to, they can start looking for 5v5s, but they will still be very, very tricky to play out, and there's no guarantee that Ultra Prime are even going to give it to them.
It's been a relatively quiet game from JDG this time around, especially from Pays, who was the big star in our first 2 games of this series. Granted, the games that JDG were playing were a lot faster than this game 3 that we've been observing for the past 21 minutes. Composition different in terms of the win condition they're trying to achieve, but this is going to be the moment in these next upcoming objective fights where JDG have to really make a statement in which way the momentum is going to swing. And with Ultra Prime starting up, Otacon, this could be that moment.
Could be. I mean, honestly, Ultra Prime needs to just leave this thing alone. I think any opportunity you give JDG to potentially take a 5, like, they'll take it, you know?
Yeah.
So they really need to just back up, relax, keep that thing alive, right? Just leave it there and don't die, right? Draw them in, but draw them in and find picks. Do not take these potentially bigger skirmishes that you absolutely have to.
Ultra Prime willing to sack a little bit of their health just to maintain vision control and make those picks even easier. You're already starting to see the effects of how powerful this split push setup, though, with Jong's Jax and Saber now completing 2 items on the Tryndamere. You know, obviously that early death, not the most inspiring when we're seeing a first-time Tryndamere mid in God knows how long on the LPL and maybe globally, but Tryndamere's now to the point where it is very hard to deal with the amount of CDR that you have to constantly spin on someone and either make your escape super easy or run down someone in the side lane, and you have all the sustain with the grass procs and the Ravenous Hydra. Saber's going to get to a point where it almost will feel like he is undealable with.
It will be sooner rather than later, especially if he hits third item, right? Saber, then at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of depends on what he wants to do. I would expect he just goes more raw damage, but I've seen Tryndamere do very strange things, so I'm not even going to comment on the build. I'm not even going to comment on the options. He is going to be dealing with a health stacker and an armor stacker. So, do with that information what you will. That said, still could just go for raw damage, things like just outright an IE, hit 50%, and then of course the passive gets him the rest of the way there. And then he's just cooking with straight gas at that point.
Yeah. Tension is still building up between both teams as Shun was looking for potentially an engage, or at least just trying to spook Ultra Prime into getting any flashes for free without having to burn any big buttons of their own. Dragon just spawning now. Baron about to spawn in the next 40 seconds. Otacon still on the table. Neither team has really made a strong attempt to try and collapse on it and start it up. It's just been used to push and pull people around. So we've been slowly waiting, Jamada, for the action to finally spark up from the catalyst.
Yeah, and it's always really scary when Atacon's on the top side of the map too, because one bad fight, even if it's around, hell, like sometimes Dragon, you can have time to take both of those objectives, but if it's top, 100%, you can get Atacon, you can get Baron. And that is a very, very unforgiving position to be in. So Ultra Prime have to pay their due diligence, and they're keeping Scout on this top side. They understand that that is where their bread is buttered. That is their strong side, right? Pays just sat here being a wave clear, bot. That's all he really has to do. The Scout keeps Cryo topside, and they're looking for a play up here.
Wants it. Cyclone sets up the guaranteed flash taunt for missing, looking for Saber. Ignite burns him down, and Rosie Love does not get a chance to escape. Saber lives, but the rest of Ultra Prime now down without a support, and it's a 5-man advantage strong for JDG on the map as they take out this tier 2 turret, and now they're starting to make the pings toward the Otacon.
Yeah, they should just be able to pick that up, and I mean, they might even consider a Baron. I mean, it's really up to them, to be honest with you. One or the other, as they all fight over Scuttle. But it will be given to Shun. The vision pop comes through. They see Junhao. And now remember, there's no information for Ultra Prime. They know that because of the Scuttle prop. They're going to be spotted on that ETH rotation. It's going to be alright. So no Baron, no big play, no decision made by JDG there.
We got a little bit of the explosive action from JDG as they find potentially another pick. Junhao, if it goes down, surely that should be both of these epic objectives on the table. But JDG are first going to take control of the mid wave, making sure that Ultra Prime don't have a chance to contest this tier 2 turret. Now that it's been taken care of, their eyes are on the top river.
Yep, top river. Big objectives. Should be both of them. And I mean, Ultra Prime, let's see what they try to do to make this awkward as a takedown. Atacon, I imagine they might give over. But the problem as I started to do the maths myself, the problem is they give over Atacon. They do Atacon first. Going for a Baron contest just feels horrible, right? You've got 2 teleports already available. So if you kill those solo laners, they'll just withdraw and teleport right back. So take the towers. JGG understand that just because of that, they're going to have to go back to base just to defend and ensure they don't lose the entire thing. But now, with the Atacon buff, you get a free shot at Baron, right? You get a free opportunity to draw Ultra Prime into a 5v5 and ensure that you get the conditions you want, pretty much, for a fight. And all summoner spells on the important members up and available, right? Missing doesn't need flash to find successful impact or high impact in these team fights. With so many melees, he's just going to naturally be able to do his thing. So JDG, good little bit of recovery. They're still down 3,000 gold.
Yeah, and I will say JDG are giving a lot of respect to Ultra Prime's split pushing potential. They did not immediately gun for the Baron, after Otacon was completed because they had to correct a lot of these waves on both top and bot wave. Ala might be in trouble. Junhao and Jung have done a great job of routing him off and away from any reinforcements. The rest of JDG are just pushing through the mid lane. Ala, there goes the Otacon GA. That is gone, but JDG will take advantage of this and pretty much open the map through the mid lane. Tier 2 completely gone. And that True Shot Barrage, it does not find Jung, does not delay the recalls, but they got the work that they wanted anyway. Inhibitor turret already taken off the table. And now, once again, they're pinging for Baron, but I imagine how, or I wonder how the call will change since Saber, with this Hole Breaker, maybe tries to threaten it, but now he's recalling, so I'm not sure if Ultra Prime really believe in their ability to base race against the Baron take.
No, I don't think they're willing to take the flip. And I mean, I don't think I would be either. JDG, again, it's just a good trade. Ala buys a lot of time. Also, great discipline, not casting the ultimate down there as well, knowing that, you know, he's going to withdraw and he could potentially TP and, you know, stop a potential rotation from Junhao. Good stuff. Generally, good stuff as they now start the Baron. They know there's no vision because they just popped the Skull a second ago. Plenty of pings coming down from Ultra Prime, so they still know Spider senses tingling, and they see it now.
And there's no split push pressure, so Ultra Prime are opting into what should be JDG favored in this 5-on-5 composition that they've built for teamfighting. But Missing is already taken off of the fight, but that's the Otacon GA. They turn on to the left side looking for Zhang. Pops the stasis, but gets out with the leap strike, looking at Shun. He secures the Baron. Oh, wait. Junhao stole the Baron away from JDG. JDG, they completely lost their marbles. They're losing a couple members on both sides, but that's a big win for Ultra Prime to take away and deny the Baron as Waco Pays. He's flashing forward. He wants a statement to be made. He takes out Pays, and he goes down for his efforts, but holy moly.
Hold on.
I like what you're cooking here, Waco.
Yeah, I don't mind. Honestly, if Scout did a TP there as well, the Waco might have really fried them in that 2v1. John, he's going to move down here to this dragon. He's going to look to secure it, but teleport's coming out from Ala. He's moving over. Scout, he's also moving over. There's no way that Ultra Prime are going to be able to take this one. They will face check, but they're more than fine. Rosie Love, he's getting burst down. There's CC as well onto Jiang.
Counter-Strike only on the 2-member. He's got to delay as much time as possible. Rosie Love gets popped, and Scout is looking for Zhang next. Zhang is doing everything he can. Another proc of the Counter-Strike with the CDR just is not enough. JDG withstand and withhold. All the Baron buffs are off the table, and the crisis is averted for JDG as they have this opportunity to secure this dragon.
Goodness me, it's just so messy, man. And Shun as well in that Baron pit. Opportunity to smite it, doesn't quite press the button. I don't know what else to say. And as he dies as well, I think, well, not I think, the Atacon buff dropped off mid-fight for JDG. Very unfortunate, as we'll see in this replay. Missing a little bit too far forward, trying to zone. I'm not quite sure. You know, I think it just needs to be a little bit more on top of pace. That's all I'm going to say. Manages to still get use out of the Atacon buff, but the buff drops off, I think, in about 2 seconds or so. It might be on the exact same frame that shouldn't die. Just plain and simple, actually. Look, he's 1 HP, 1 HP, 1 HP. Drops off then, right? It's kind of unlucky. He doesn't get that Baron smited down either. Junhao, quicker on the draw. And JDG, unfortunately, as that Void Seeker hits, Waco takes it. And like I said, if TP doesn't come down from Victor here, from Scout, there's a real world I can see where Waco
Space glides all over them.
Yeah, he might space glide all over them. One more passive proc, I think, kills Ala there almost every day of the week.
I'm really happy with how we got here in this game 3. The game is once again not really strongly in favor in either side. Ultra Prime are technically ahead in gold, but we're 32 minutes in the game, so 1,000 gold lead doesn't feel the most suffocating. And JDG, with their composition on paper, 5-on-5, they have the tools to space out and fight front to back. But Ultra Prime also have these powerful split push threats that JDG have consistently needed to attend to before they look at objectives.
Yeah, they've been a bit second to the draw a lot of the time here, JDG, on that front. But now, you know, spoke about how items needed to come online. That was a century ago. Carries are now 4 items apiece, right? Between Pays and Scout.
Baby.
And we've seen how much damage Scout's been able to do to the frontliners, specifically Gian. So really does make you wonder how Ultra Prime are going to look to try and approach this now, because no longer do you just kind of get default control of the mid lane, right? And rotate that into side lane pressure. That part of the game's kind of done, you know? When these Uber buffs start spawning up, Baron, Soul, of course, for Ultra Prime, next dragon that spawns up in a couple of minutes' time, it's very difficult to play out the game with the champions that you have now, right? And that is kind of the pros and cons of having things like an elite support in the game. Amazing amount of early pressure. Later on in the game, you just kind of have an Elise walking around with, you know, Storm Surge, Sword Boots, and you're hoping that the damage that she's putting out is either onto Scout or onto Pays, and if it's not, then champion's just not super valuable.
Yep. Yeah. The bane of having Elise in any meta in the history of League of Legends. You don't get this off the ground early and you don't close it out, then you're just a cocoon bot, and that doesn't feel great. And for JDG, their chances of being able to navigate these corridors where they don't really have vision, it's a lot easier when you have your frontliners being the ones face checking and being able to grant safe passage for your squishier targets and your priority carries. Still waiting on a couple of objectives to spawn here on the map, Baron, in the next minute. I'm not going to even try and guess Dragon, because last time I was very incorrect. So, when Dragon spawns, they'll spawn. And that'll be sole point for Ultra Prime to contest for, and JDG not quite, but they'll try to see if they can deny it here, Demacia.
Yep, we will have to wait and see. 30 seconds until the Baron, though, and that will be spawning slightly ahead of time on that Dragon, so that could end up being the priority. Pays, we saw that -1. We saw it. Okay, and, you know, he's actually got a Seeker's Arm Guard, so he is absolutely chilling between Bloodthirster, between Cleanse and Flash, and just being Ezreal. He could have a really good time. Ultra Prime this, looking for a play on the side lane, and I like this. All in on the side lane, got the Hull Breaker. It's really hard for Arla to kill. JDG have to respond to this.
My goodness, I mean, the turret just evaporated. Scout is there to answer, but Saber's just going to try and force his hand. That's Seeker's or Zonya's gone, and now Saber has to run for the hills, popping the Ghost. But they've got their objective in taking out that inhibitor tower. The inhibitor itself is still alive. Oh boy. I'm pretty sure that ward should spot them that they're doing Baron.
I mean, they would have maybe seen... Yeah, I think they saw Victor, and they're probably seeing the Baron particles, right? So now they know Ultra Prime. They should get this soul. Ultra Prime should get soul. I think JDG have to all in this Baron. Otherwise, it's just a trade that Ultra Prime are happy to get. But it's a little bit hesitant. It's late, but also look where Junhao is. He's being held up here by Arla. And I think this Baron should go down, but how did Ultra Prime get the fight after
3,000, Junhao, can he get into the
Junhao,
pit? He's close, he does it again! Junhao, the man that was behind Shun's spot in BLG on the BLG Junior team, is able to show up against the man that was in front of him. He does go down, but they deny Baron buff away from JDG. Ultra Prime now just have to live. They have to contain as many Baron buffs as they can for the last surviving members, as a Cocoon will force the cleanse out of Pays. He wants to keep track and try and run down as many members as possible. Soul was obtained by Ultra Prime. Baron was obtained by Ultra Prime. This is the closest that they have been able to tango with JDG, and I am living for it, Demacia.
Okay, I don't want to be mean, but did we got JDG Yike in this? In this house, what's going on?
Hey, I will not tolerate Peruvian goat slander on my cast.
I love, okay, in his defense, this one far harder to hit, but yeah, 2 times back to back, man. It feels so bad for JDG. If they're ever able to pick this one up as that Q does so much damage onto Junhao, lets you know where Pace is at in the game. If he isn't able to, you know, get these steals, this game is over. He is single-handedly keeping Ultra Prime in the game. with these objective steals. And now Ultra Prime have Soul, right? That's the permanent buff that you're looking for. And again, remember, imagine trying to get away from a Tryndamere, or like catching up to a Tryndamere who's popped off at 1 HP, or a Jax who's trying to run you down, right? These things feel awful. Trying to lock down a Kai'Sa that's just dove in. This is one of those Cloud Souls that, you know, at face value, maybe you think, it's kind of whatever, but then when you really think about how it's going to be, how the champions are going to start interacting with JDG, it gets really, really hard to think about.
For the first time this series, JDG are on the back foot, and they are running out of options, and every single time that they have had a way out of this game to put it in a position where they can close it, they fumbled. And big props to Junhao for being clutch on the steals. However, he might be caught out here. This Call of the Forge God will land true, and ain't no way Junhao's escaping this one. JDG forced the numbers advantage on the map, but what can they do with it during the next minute that Junhao is not alive?
Junhao dead. 50-second death timer as well. How much can JDG get done? I mean, their side lanes are really the big problem, right? So they're going to look for this mid lane inhibitor because they broke open the base earlier. And it will be a 3 versus 2. Pays shouldn't missing. Will be an inhibitor down, but it's the mid lane inhibitor, right? So it's not the most important, but I think in this context, it's pretty good because you're dealing with all of this side lane pressure, right? And it kind of acts as a bit of a counterweight. You've always got super minions pushing through the mid lane. As hold on, Waco!
Into the back line, but he's got to be careful for the Cyclone as Shun completes the flash and knocks him up, but Saber is here for the collapse. Pace is left all by himself, but he deals with Rosie Love anyway. The rest of Ultra Prime trying to eliminate JDG's last carry into Scout, but he pops the stasis, and that Chaos Storm has the power of the Arcane, ripping them to shreds, and Ultra Prime might have just blown their one shot to take a game off of JDG, because now they're down 3 members, and JDG is still rocking with 4.
Yeah, Pace is walking towards the mid lane. There's no wave for the moment, but as I say it, look how close it really is. Arlo drops the ward for Scout, and it's 4 members of JDG in the base against Jax and Vi. 2 versus 4. Let's see if Ultra Prime can hold on to this one.
Can Junhao pull out another miracle? He sends it onto Scout, but Pace is just free-firing with these Mystic shots, and if you can't take either out, there's just no chance in hell you can stop the power of JDG. 3-0, GG, well played.
Real end-to-end stuff this game. And I mean, we've credited JDG throughout a lot of this series, just for, you know, the general macro that they've shown, but Ultra Prime, honestly, take a this was like this felt like an anime fight, right? First round, show up. First round, show up, get washed. Second game, show up, surprise. You know, it's like the main antagonist just barely just kind of grazes the bad guy on that one attack, and then this time round, it was just straight hands, start to finish. Definitely by design, though, right? JDG, it was a scaling comp. It was very difficult to play the game out early, and Ultra Prime abused that. They were so creative, but when push came to shove, if you don't execute on a draft like that, it gets too difficult to really close out. Even with the freebies that were handed, Junhao stole 2 Barons in 1 game.
At that point, when you're the jungler in that instance, you kind of throw your hands up in the air and just say, well, guys, I tried. I'm sorry I couldn't do more, you know? Not to say that Junhao was completely without fault, but this was, for a moment, such an impressive showing from Ultra Prime. And once again, you know, the story is similar to what we got against the Weibo Gaming series. For the most part, you know, Ultra Prime expected to just get completely smashed. Remember, this is a roster with 3 players making their official LPL starter debut in the season of 2025. Junhao coming from BLG Junior, Saber and Rosie Love coming up within the Ultra Prime Academy system. You know, game 3, they showed the best that they could, you know, and if for a moment, Jamana, for a moment, it looked like it was going to be enough to just get 1 game off.
They had me fooled. Well, fooled is not the right word. I feel bad saying they had me fooled. They had me convinced, right? They had me convinced that they could potentially pull this rabbit out of the hat. But alas, JDG come up strong. And, you know, it's just a couple of small, you know, mistakes, I suppose, in execution. Not really, or like being unable to kind of solve some of the issues they had in closing out that game, right? I think the big one was the side lane thing. It's a very awkward game state to be in, especially if you're not necessarily practicing, like, you know, these 1v1-esque comps. And the solution, realistically, and I should have called it out in the cast, so it's my bad for doing it retrospectively. It just makes me look like a worst analyst. You start to overload into one side lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, they did it a few times, in fairness to Arla, and it looked really, you know, successful, maybe too strong a word, but again, it gave them opportunities to potentially play out the rest of the map, right? But unfortunately, even by doing that and sending Junhao to a side lane, didn't end up working out for them. And yeah, again, just generally very good responses from JDG. This might have been a 3-0, but this very easily could have been a series that, frankly, went the distance. This is not one of those 3-0s that you look at, or this is probably going to be one of those 3-0s that you look at, and if you don't remember the series, you'll think, yeah, of course JDG 3-0'd Ultra Prime, but once you, of course, start VOD watching, start going through the tape, you very quickly realize just how far Ultra Prime were able to push Jingdong in all 2 of the final games here. Because game 1, of course, was a little bit stompy.
Yeah. Game 1, definitely the most convincing and not leaving pretty much any room for us to think otherwise that Ultra Prime had a chance. But yeah, I selfishly am even more sad that Ultra Prime were not able to close this one out, because then I could have been right in my prediction, Jamada. I could have had the 3-1 dream. Oh, man. It could have been pure cinema. We got very close, though. And
I mean, this game was cinema. Look at that gold craft. It is so up and down throughout all of it. But in the funnier of ways, to be honest with you. Yeah, fantastic game to spectate. And if you tuned in late, or, you know, maybe you quite literally have just opened the stream, you're catching this portion, I definitely recommend you rewatch this game. This is a fun game to go through and navigate. Ultra Prime finally getting to show a little bit of skin in the game, right? Again, game 2, not as muted as game 1, but certainly still dominated by JDG. But this one was all about them, really, right? And how they could find ways to try to problem solve this 1v run that they'd set up for themselves. And JDG continually offered harder and harder equations to solve that unfortunately they couldn't quite overcome in the end, though it was starting to look likely with some of these Baron stills.
I just want to call back to how you kind of compared this series to an anime arc, because my god, especially with this awesome music choice we've got going on in the background, I feel like I'm watching the latest episode on Crunchyroll, bro. My goodness, it really was going from absolute ain't no way our protagonist was gonna be competing with one of the best teams ever, to then slowly in game 3, oh my god, they're doing it! It's possible! Dreams can come true! And then, I don't want to even say anticlimatically, you know, I think there's definitely, you know, animes where it's like, it wasn't meant to be, but it was just enough to give you hope and inspiration that, like, even the underdogs can overcome, you know, the best teams that we have in this league. And I've only casted 2 best of 5s so far in the LPL split, and it has been an absolute blast just to see this amount of effort. Just send it, bro, you know, in these last ditch moments.
Yeah, that's always the beautiful part, frankly, about the LPL. It's how committed these players are to the plays they make. It feels almost unparalleled. No other region quite does it like the LPL does, in terms of just putting their bodies on the line in game for these plays. And yeah, this again, another one of those games where that truth shines through and gives us a very, very entertaining way to close out the series, even if it makes it a short day overall for us here at the LPL.
It was a fun day, and I'm very grateful to have casted this with you, Jamada. It's always a pleasure, and we've only casted together now twice, but every time we get in the booth together, having more and more fun, man. But as we see the last Pog go over to Scout, I think the overall MVP of the series will still be Pays, nonetheless. I want to give a huge shout out to our elite coffee supporter, Aaron. I hope I don't butcher your last name. Superi. Their pledged financial contribution helps level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every day. Thank you so much, Aaron. This such a generous donation and gift that you've given us, and it does not go without gratitude. So, and to everyone else that has also been supporting us on Coffee, y'all are the GOATs, y'all are the MVPs. It has been an absolute blast to be casting LPL with Jamana and the rest of the broadcast and staff and crew. We want to thank everyone for tuning in to today's match. Same time tomorrow, 2 a.m. Pacific, 5 a.m. Eastern. Jamada, what is it, 9 a.m. Central European, or what's the technical term?
10 p.m. Central European, 9 p.m. for any UK folks. Do the maths if you're anywhere else in the world. I don't know. That's how it normally works.
Hopefully, we've given enough time zones that people can calculate it. But you know, if it's that needed, we will have one of our staff construct a super long time zone. You know,
that's it. Yeah, we just make a large graphic with time zones spanning the entire world, and we just post graphic every single time zone.
There you go. There you go. Well, that does it for us, y'all. Again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Love you. Good night.